Good evening, everyone. Back in the 1920s, the whole of Europe was in the midst of a huge racing bug, and there were many famous public road courses such as the Mille Miglia, Avis, Targa Florio and the Taunus Circuit. Now that was really the start of Germany's obsession with motor racing, this public road just north of Frankfurt that ran for what you could describe as being 3 times a normal marathon. And it was suggested, not far away from the ancient town of Nurburgring, to make a racetrack that was in the spirit of the Targa Florio, one of the most incredible races at the time in the mid-20s. So, a bunch of designers got together, and in the spring of 1927, ADAC were able to start putting on some events. Motorcycles, sidecars, and then 5-litre big Mercedes-Benz K cars appeared on the track and started to cement this status as an incredible track. Not only was the Nurburgring becoming infamous, it was becoming hellish. You had stories of the pre-war greats, including Rudolf Caracciola, Tazio Nuvolari and Bernd Rosemeyer, all being classed as ringmeisters, drivers who had the ability to tame the over 180 corners of the old race circuit. Nowadays, in the 2020s, the Nordschleife doesn't have quite as many corners. The Nordschleife is no longer a track that exists within the Nürburgring region. It doesn't make up the full circuit, but it nevertheless has remained an imposing challenge for GT3 drivers, WEC drivers, WTCRs, the GT drivers of the early 90s, the World Sports Car Championship, everything that you can think of, it has had it. And tonight, that is where we'll be racing for the final round of the championship here at ACC Race Nation. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator as always for the championship, and I'm really excited to get underway and talk about what is happening tonight. It's a double points event as well to add a little bit more spice and variety into the mix. It is going to be fascinating to see how the drivers adapt to what is unofficially 144 corners around what can only be described as the most iconic race circuit in the world. I know some people would disagree with that statement, and to be honest with you, I would understand. However, most would disagree. The track itself is 15.769 miles long. The lap record is actually set by a Ferrari 296 GT3 by Daniel Kalevitz, and that was 2 years ago, and he did that in an 8-minute 8. So whether the drivers can get anywhere near that will take some bravery, to say little of it. I know that we're having a little bit of a problem with the lobby. I'm not quite sure what has gone on. I know there was some conversation about G-Portal and some clashes going on there, so hopefully we'll be able to bring you the coverage tonight. Got quite a few people who are watching and commenting in the chat. Hello to Jacob Byford-Drew. Hello to Stuart, who is watching via his daughter's Twitch. Whilst you're there, Stuart, give us a follow. Your daughter can get started early on some racing action, start her from a good age. But for everybody else who is watching this evening, we have got 2 hours of racing in front of us, so do bear with us as we go through everything we can. I'm just having a little look at the minute with the Discord in terms of the event itself. Hello to Mikey, I've just seen you pop up there. It looks like we've had a mass disconnection, and we're going to have a reset of the server. So everything is paused for the time being. Everyone can have a breather. The session will get reset. So I will wait for John to work through all of that, the ACC Race Nation director. He has to sort all of those elements out. What will happen is it will set us up with a 5-minute pre-practice session. We'll have a 20-minute qualifying, I would assume, and then we will go into the race itself. So there's one driver who actually did decide to go out and get some practice in. That was Fabio Matt in the 167 black and red. That's a cracking livery on the Italian's 296 GT3, just coming up through the right-hander over the, I almost want to say the second part of the circuit, but for those that don't know, that's Flugplatz that he's just gone through at the right-hander. So he's about 2 to 3 miles into the lap of this circuit so far. It's quite a long way to go. I will go on board with somebody for a lap of this brilliant race circuit. I reckon it'll be Sebastian Goho Renault in the 44 Ferrari. He was setting the times in practice. He looked very fast. He did have a big shunt actually during practice. I was watching him as he went through Metzgerveld, the left-hander that Fabio Matt's not too far away from. So not imperceptible to any accidents on this circuit, but of course with it being the green hell, as Jackie Stewart coined it in the 1960s, this is not a circuit that you can just assume you race around with muscle memory. It is one of those tracks that will bite at the moment of any hesitation. It will bite at the moment of any mistake, or even some incompetence, or even competence for that matter. It will do whatever it likes. And just as we say, the timer just now ticking over, so the lobby will reset. We'll go into that in a moment. But I did say we are in a championship fight, so let's just talk about that briefly. Stuart Packham leads the championship on 388 points. However, sadly, he is not racing tonight, so that means unless 6 of the drivers beneath him in the drivers' standings don't finish tonight, sadly, he won't be champion of season 11. That, though, gives an open door to Mark Chapman. So Mark Chapman's on 381 points. He leads de facto championship at the moment, with Jeffrey Van Buren, his closest challenger, 17 points back on 364. We then cycle back a little bit into 4th place. It's Tony Sokolov on 334 points. It's Dennis Penders in 5th place on 333. Hartle Toby is 6th on 328, with Dan Hatton on 325 and 7th place. Howard Dunn is 8th on 320. Jordan Harding, who is racing tonight, is on 302 points in 9th place. And Tony Manley has crept into the top 10 in the drivers' standings on 279. Just showing you how well the Italian has performed this season. He's had some really good results, says Tony. Only the odd blip when he had a retirement back at round 2. So he's doing a great job, it has to be said. Let's see if we can get back into the server. Practice has resumed. And there we go. That looks positive. That looks like we're moving in the right direction. Stuart also wishing Mikey good luck in getting into the lobby. That's what we all hope for. We're hoping for a debutant to come and join us tonight, but I will talk about him once he is in the lobby. We've got everything cycling over, and they have also decided to update, for the first time, the driver names. So normally what you would see is the race ID of the drivers. So typically if it was Jordan Harding, for example, in 7th place on the timing tower, that would say IRC JPH99. We're actually seeing the drivers' names for the first time, which for me and for you guys watching is actually quite a benefit for you lot. It's less so for me, because admittedly I do know all the drivers' names from their PSNs. I can work that one out, but sometimes that can get a little bit awkward for some people, so they don't know what is going on. But we've got 16 drivers. We did have 19 in before, so that will change surely. Let's tick that over so we can see the track map and the entirety of the Nordschleife. So As I was saying, it is a championship fight. Mark Chapman, Jeffrey Van Buren are the main protagonists. However, with double points on offer this evening, that can absolutely all change. So, a race victory normally in ACC Race Nation is 31 points. However, with it being double points, the race winner will get 62. So mathematically, Howard Dunn, who we're following in the AMR V8 at the moment, is just on the GP Streck loop of the circuit. He mathematically could still win the championship, providing that Mark Chapman retired from the race this evening. I'm just having a little look through at the drop scores as well, because that could come into practice today. Everybody who is mathematically involved have already had either a DNF or a non-start. So that will be taken as their lowest total, apart from Jeffrey Van Buren. Now, Van Buren had a 20th place finish back at round 4. So in theory, if he retired from this race, he would gain 11 points. But that wouldn't be enough to overhaul Mark Chapman. So, of course, he is going to have to make sure he, 1, wins this race, and 2, hope for Chappers to have some issues, which is to be expected tonight in this 2-hour race. It is, of course, going to be a tricky challenge. But we've got 5 minutes of free practice to go through. Just have a look who is up the road. Oh, you can see Dunn bouncing over the chicane there, over the curbs. Not an easy, not a bumpy ride on the tarmac. It's certainly a bumpy ride off it, as Dunn's just demonstrated. So the 23 demonstrating to everybody just how difficult it is to drive a GT3 car around a Nordschleife, and not just in terms of, yes, it's a narrow circuit, but because of the curbs. The curbs are quite difficult to navigate, and that was very wide through the left-hander there, going down through the first section of the course. You don't normally see somebody going that far wide, but there we are. He lives to tell the tale, which is the most important thing in this practice session. Further up the road, you've got Fabio Matt, and you also have Jacob Byford-Rue in the M4, and that looks like a new livery for this evening. It is from him. That looks almost reminiscent of the early 90s Lotus green, white and gold livery that they had going on when Johnny Herbert drove that F1 car back in the day. So Byford-Rue going out with a bang, and a new livery at that. Jarram's in the pits. Rover Rakatamanga is back this evening, as is Tony Manley. Liam Watkinson, Jordan Hardin is back after missing Valencia last week. We've already talked about Howard Dunn and Fabio Matt. Dan Hatton got his first podium last week. I did say to him it would happen, and it has. Van der Waal, looks like he's running a slightly different colour scheme to usual, but we can't see from here. Van Buren, second in the driver's standings, he's in the pits. Dennis Penders is out there. He's coming toward Flux Platz now, the right-hander here. Oh, into the wall he goes. I was just about to say he's pushing the limits. Forget the limits. He's pushed those fenders right in on his GT3 car. Chapman is there, champion-elect as it stands. Our reigning champion, Danny Zoutenbayer, the outgoing Season 10 champion. He is racing this evening. What could have been for him? He was leading the championship after round 10, but sadly he missed a number of races, and that spelled the end of a title defence for him. Joe Warner's circulating in the 75. Goho Renault as well. And John Wells is there in the BMW. Less than 4 minutes to go in the session. Mark Chapman just saying good evening to everybody. Game on for tonight, minus the Polar Express Bentley. I think from now on, whenever we commentate on ACC Race Nation, I don't think Stuart is ever going to get away from the Polar Express. I think any car he drives, if he does take the Lamborghini next season, as he's been hinting at, it will be the Polar Lambo for him. We'll talk about that on another occasion. Let's just have a look at the GT3 chat. Seems like we're still having technical issues to get our debutants in. We've still got time, of course. We've got the 20 minutes of qualifying to come as Byford Rue flies now towards the next section of the track. He's just going through Clostertal, just there at the left-hander, and approaching the most famous corner, really, in motor racing. No, it's not Hoacht or Whipperman or even the Stefan Baloff S. It's the Carousel, the left-hander, named after Rudolf Caracciola back in the 1920s. He was the driver. He went down this inlet rather than going around the outside like everybody else did. He chose that line and cemented his status as one of the greatest pre-war drivers in the history of motor racing. A sad part of history that we don't actually talk about, really. We talk about the greatest of all time in open wheel and GT racing over the years, and yet quite a lot of these guys from before World War II are never mentioned. I mentioned them at the top of the session: Rudolf Caracciola, Tazio Nuvolari, just to name two of them who in particular always ring true in my mind. But Bernd Rosemeyer, another one, a great driver for his time, sadly passed away at a very young age for a Speedland record at the time. So he's not even featured in the records in the same way that those two aforementioned drivers are. Louis Chiron is the driver who, back when the Nordschleife was at its biggest in the 1920s, has the lap record around there. He also raced in Indianapolis, did Louis Chiron, and Formula One. Actually scored a podium in Formula One back in the 50s, if my memory serves me correctly. I think it was at the Monaco Grand Prix. The first Monegasque driver to ever get a podium at Monaco. So, you know, forget Charles Leclerc. The history of Monaco has been going for, well, motor racing at Monaco has been going for over 80 years. But Byford Rue just coming through the Stefan Baloff S's. He's going now towards the right-hander and into the double left that is coming up. Effectively at the Schwalenben Schwanz, which is the left-hander there, and we're now ticking down on the maximum wait time. So drivers in theory can still set a lap time if they wish to do so, but if they want to get on with the race in action, I would probably suggest returning to the pits and letting us get on with qualifying as soon as possible. Stuart is complaining at the moment in the chat about the tags making him sound a little bit, I'm going to describe that as being homosexual. What I would say, Stuart, is it doesn't. I think having the Polar Express Lambo, I think that's quite a good sponsorship opportunity. You can get ice rings to sponsor you, the little children's suite. You can have that instead. I'm sure that'll make you feel more masculine, I'm sure. But Byford Rue just rounding off these last couple of corners, past the Audi sports sign. Of course, Audi famous for incredible GT racing. We haven't got any Audis on the grid this season. I know that a couple of drivers have mentioned about the fact that they are tempted to go into the R8 for next season, season 12. Yet to be announced the start date for that. Well, I know it won't be too soon. Let's not forget we've had 15 races. This will be round 15 of the championship. But we have got Byford Rue now back in the pit lane. Watkinson is out on circuit getting in some last minute practice, as is Howard Dunn. He's just going through the GP loop. He just went a little bit wide there. And now back in the pit. So there we go. Qualifying is underway. And that is what we've been waiting for. And Mark Chapman fires out of the pit lane before anybody else. So he'll be delighted with that. But Hartle Toby, in a very resplendent green livery. He's updated the colour scheme on that. I have to say it's a nice looking Mustang, that. He was closest to the exit of the pit lane, and he's got himself out on circuit first. And it's quite a big event for him because, of course, Hartle Toby, this is his home circuit in the championship. So he'll be wanting to put on a show, and the Mustang will be very strong around here. The Mustang will hold its nerve quite well. and the speed that it has will work out nicely for him. So that is a good car for him to be operating in the 208. He does have, of course, an outside chance at winning season 11. It would take quite a lot to go his way, admittedly, but he is in a battle with Tony Sokolov and Dennis Penders for what looks to be potentially second or even third place in the drivers' standings. We'll wait to see how he does. But that's a nice livery. I have to say that he's produced for tonight's final round. I know a lot of drivers do like to create a special final race livery, which is always great to see. And he'll be delighted as well that he's not carrying any ballast, because for most of this season, Hartle has carried quite a fair amount. He always seems to get it on tracks that I would describe them as being non-friendly Mustang circuits. So hopefully for the German, he'll get a good result in tonight. His best result of the season, first place, back at round 5 in Laguna Seca. So he'll be hoping for a little bit more tonight. Drivers who are carrying ballast this evening, 2 of them aren't actually here. Stuart Packham, who won last week at Valencia, as Toby takes an interesting grassy line through the section there at the left-right before the chicane. So Stuart Packham, who would have carried the ballast, he won last week, of course. He won't be carrying the maximum ballast. Just a reminder for those that are just unaware, 30 kilos of ballast goes to the race winner. That is applied at this event. Second place from last week was Tony Sokolov, and he isn't racing tonight either, so he won't carry any ballast for the rest of the season. And then third place, it was Dan Hatton. So this is the first time all season that he has carried ballast, and what a circuit to carry ballast at as well, to be fair. It's not an easy circuit, as I've already testified to before, but the McLaren will have to get used to 15 kilos of ballast in the 55 McLaren. But only 4 drivers in the pits currently. Our outgoing champion, Danny Zoutenbayer, is one of those. Someone's just left the pits now and made a fool out of me. Excuse me. Jordan Harding is another one. I know that Jordan is trying to help the 19th driver get into the lobby. And then Byford Rue, who's obviously running that lovely colour scheme that he's got on for this evening. Let's get out there as we watch Fabio Matt come through the floodplats. And Bjorn will be hoping for problems for Chapman. At the minute, the gap between the two is 17 points. So just using some quick mathematics, effectively, if Jeffrey Van Buren were to win the race, which would give him 62 points, I'll have to work that out as we go along. But I think if I'm right in saying that if Mark Chapman finishes in 10th place, he would score on a normal occasion. So if you were to take a normal point situation, first place gets 31, then it's 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. So he would get 42 points if he finished in 10th place. And if Van Buren won and Mark Chapman finished in 10th, then that would be a 20-point swing, which would give Van Buren the championship. So Chappers needs to finish in 9th position. So if he does that, he will be champion tonight. He'll be a 3-time champion, the first to do so in ACC Race Nation, to go along with his other titles that he's had. And that'll be fascinating to see. I'm just having a little look at the discussion that's being had. But Van Buren on a lap at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find Goho Renault. We will ride on board of him in a moment. So we'll follow Tony Manley going through the floodplats. Stuart has sent me effectively a inspired McLaren GTR livery for his, I'm going to say that looks like an M6 to me, GT3 car that he's got. Cracking livery that, Stuart, to be fair. That is a nice one. Console can do liveries, not as in the same way that what PC runners can use, admittedly, but they can still do some different style of livery, which is always great. It just gives a little bit of customization. But so far, so good in this qualifying session. Of course, no one has set a lap time yet because of the length of this circuit. So if Mark Chapman were to finish in 9th place and Van Buren won, that would give Van Buren an 18-point swing in his favour. So Mark Chapman to win the title tonight, regardless of what happens, if he finishes in 8th position, he will be champion of season 11. And as I said before, he become that is going to be a feature of this evening, I reckon, in terms of the headset switching off as it likes to do. I know that some people might think, is that a technical issue that I can fix? Unfortunately, it isn't. Just because I'm the only one who is in a lobby chat, so the headset thinks that I am talking to myself and no one else is responding, so it switches itself off after a period of time. There's nothing I can do to get around that. I have had a look, a little bit frustrating, but hey ho, we will do our best. And just looking at my statistics that I've got here, so I was saying before about Mark Chapman getting a title. I should make a point here that I've said it was a 3-time world champion. It has gone round the world, this championship. He would be a 2-time champion of ACC Race Nation. So he won back in season 2, and if he were to get it tonight, that would be his 2nd driver's crown. So it's quite a long streak to have gone on for Chappers, really, when you consider it. It's been 9 seasons since he last won, and ACC Race Nation has grown since then. It's become a big enterprise for the team who run it. So to be a 2-time champion would be fantastic, and I will correct myself on that one, just so you're all aware. He would be a 2-time champion. But Manley's still circulating at the moment. A little look back to see where Goho Renault is. He's just a little bit in front of the Italian, so we'll follow him for the lap. And the thing is with Sebastian is that he is a very good driver. I know that some people will be aware of this, but for those that aren't, he has done 2 races this season. He was unlucky in the 2nd race that he took part in because he retired from that one. There was a few issues that day that he had to encounter and try and battle his way through, and sadly he couldn't. But he in his first race, on his debut with ACC at round 11 at Monza, he won. He won in his Ferrari. So he is certainly a man to watch out for, and I am excited for this qualifying lap. This will be the longest qualifying lap of the championship. He's going down the Dottinger straight. I see his Ferrari topping out at 171 miles an hour on the main straight. It will artificially increase when he comes down the hill. And how much does he risk going into the braking zone for these last couple of corners? 174 miles an hour. So we brake and get ready, strap yourselves in for what is going to be a very long but brilliant lap of the Nurburgring Nordschleife. A 24-hour layout. Here we go then into, first of all, the GP circuit. So using the old Formula 1 layout and what other DTM races use, you've got to spot your braking zone on the left hand side of the 100-metre marker, down through the gears and into the right hander first gear, and then you go left rather than following the outer loop over a tricky undulation of the tarmac and then into the left and right. Pretty straightforward corners to work out, to be honest with you. They are second gear left hander, maybe a first right hander for some drivers, and there you go. Goho Renault decides to take that in first gear. Then he'll filter his way down towards the hairpin, one of the key stopping points in the first part of this track. Dunlop hairpin, it's known as, down to 55 miles an hour. The front end tucking in nicely. Got to be patient with those corners. Then it's the Schumacher S's, named after Germany's greatest son in Michael. Through the left, through the right. That's committed from Sebastian, but he survives for the time being. He's got the left-right before he gets a move on down to the first mini straight. A second gear left-hander, followed by what will probably be a second gear right-hander. 70-80 miles an hour on the exit. A little bit wide, but won't do him too much damage. A click-flick of the wrist for the right-hander, and then into a slightly alternative chicane than usual. Braking a little bit later than what you would have done normally. Avoid the yellow curb on the inside of the left-hander, skip over the right-hand side, and you will then join the original Nordschleife circuit. First gear, left-hander, another awkward bit of tarmac to join onto, and it's into the left. This is a difficult part of the circuit to get right, because if you get it wrong here, you have to go all the way back to the pits, and if you're in the race, that'll take you a long time. The right-hander is quite committed, and then the left-hander is straightforward. It's about spotting a blind corner here over the crest at the right-hander. That's a little bit wide. He's going to nudge the wall, and he does indeed. Then the right and then the left. Through this section, the car just bounces all over the curbs. He has survived that little moment. And then over another curb, and then down through the hill at Hatzenbach. Have a breath for a moment. You'll come over the Quiddelbacher Hoe, which is what it's called. This little rise here, and then into Flugplatz. Very committed right-hander. See Goho Renault almost taking that on throttle, but couldn't manage to do so. And then probably the longest part of the first half of this circuit in terms of flat-out action. All the way through to Schwedenkreuz, the left-hander here, another committed corner. Look at that, he's absolutely flat. Down through the gears then, and into Arenberg. An important corner to get right at the hairpin. Spots his braking zone, and that looks like Joe Warner in front of us. I don't think Sebastian will be too impressed by him being there. Fuchsrow and Adenauer Forest are next up. Key corner is the left-hander. It can be blind as you approach the braking area, and you can't take too much curb. Will Warner get out the way? He does, awkwardly, for... Oh! And then there's contact between the two. And sadly for us, that is our lap prematurely ended. I can see that there are two cars circulating, coming up towards Arenberg. I'm going to see them. It's Rover Rakatamanga, who we're following, and Jordan Harding. So Rakatamanga in the Porsche, completely different characteristics on the Frenchman's Porsche, of course. He's now approaching the next section of the race circuit, which is at Adenauer Forest. Down through the hill he goes. Got to make sure he gets the left-hander right. You can see the Porsche just sliding out a little bit, and then into these lower braking slower corners, which is a very obviously tourist attraction area for those that come and watch the Touristenwagen. This is when the daily average drivers decide to pop out. You never know, you might even see a Volkswagen van around there. Into the left-hander, as we have a weird visual glitch. And we've lost Rover Rakatamanga. Everyone we ride on board with doesn't seem to want to finish a lap for us. That's quite saddening, I won't lie. I was having a really good time then. I'm sure you all were too, but alas, we seem to have lost another driver. That's a great shame. So who would be the next driver to follow? It looks like Michael van der Waal is the one who's on a flying lap. The number 71. There he is. The Flugsplat's getting a lot of action this evening. As he comes over the crest into the right-hander. Van der Waal's livery slightly different. He's gone for a sky blue, lime green colour scheme with the black. He was unlucky last week, Van der Waal, to have the accident that he did that took him out of contention for a podium. Over the curb into the left-hander. That McLaren looks very floaty, I won't lie. Something's not quite joined up with that car. Not compared to Goho Renault before. Down through the gears at the right-hander of Arenberg. He's off now down Fuchs Row. And into what would be Adenauer Forest. Really key part of this circuit. Into the left on the curb. You can run over the curb on that one a little bit. Very cautious through the right and the left-handers. And I can understand why some drivers would take a more cautious approach. They'll take a slow, legitimate lap time as opposed to one where they either A, disconnect or B, crash off the road. But nevertheless, we are through that part of the track and we are now into Metzgerveld. This left-hander, really committed left-hander in fourth gear, down through the gears again into third. And then he'll be dropping into Callenhard. Another tricky corner this. It is a frequent spectator area because it is very, as you just saw, a very difficult corner to get right in terms of putting the throttle on. Into the left-right, reverse siphon. Just got to... he's going to run a little bit too wide. He just about hung onto the car then. You just have to take it easy into this braking zone. It is undulating. Camber does fall away from you in this car. But Van der Waal so far, almost 5 seconds up on his lap time. He's going to go into Exmul, this bridge over an access point, effectively. Dips down and then up into the right-hander, and he's now going to be trying to get the car fired on all cylinders over the crest and towards Birkwerk at the right-hander. It's a long right-hander. Braking zone isn't too difficult to find, but you can overshoot it if you get too ambitious in the braking zone. It's a second gear right-hander, taking a couple of inputs of the steering wheel to get round it, but he does make it in the end. And then into what is a lovely part of this circuit, into Kesselchen and then Klostertal. But before then, he's got all of this tarmac in front of him to just push as hard as possible. But the thing is with this track is it is slightly inclined at this section, so cars like Van der Waal might not be going for sixth gear. They prefer to bounce off the limiter. Then it's into Klostertal. Just a blip of the brake and then into the right-hander. This is a committed corner. Oh, it's understeer central in this McLaren. Spot your braking zone into the right-hander. And round he goes in second gear. He's now almost 6 seconds up. He's going to be in the 8-minute 30s. The most famous corner on the race circuit, the carousel, into the left-hander. Second gear, 50 miles an hour. Got to take your time. You can't put the power down too early around there because of the way that the guttering system works. If you put a wheel up in the air, which you can do, and you put the power down, you spin round. Through another part of this course that I really enjoy, these left-right-handers here. And again, Van der Waal just making sure he's keeping the car on the circuit. He's going to go to Hoacht, which is the right-hander at the top of the hill. Now the course descends down. This is where the drivers will spend most of the time being assisted by gravity. Into Wipperman. And again, just taking it nice and steady. No messing about from the Dutchman. We'll be going into Brunchen in a moment, which is the popular spectator area. You'll see all the spectators lined up there. They all are watching the GT3s at ACC Race Nation coming through. Doesn't go into the gravel trap. And then he has to just navigate this right-hander as well, which he does. So the left-hander coming up. And that will see all of the spectator cameras disappear. He's now going to enter the Plantsgarten. So this is a little dip in the road that you're going to see come up just in a moment's time. You have to brake. And then brake again as you go over to just settle the car so it doesn't bounce too much at the right hand. And that was nicely done, actually. Good application through there. Then Van der Waal will go through the Beloff S, named, of course, after Stefan Beloff, the original lap record holder around here in the 80s in a Group C Porsche 962. And then he has to approach these last couple of corners really difficult. You can see him fighting the car on the braking area. It's just wanting to step away from him. But so far, this is a legitimate lap time into the mini carousel at the left-hander, as I like to call it. And then it's Schwalben-Schwanz to round out the final part of this lap at the right-hander. Look at the car. Just postulating all over the road, really, to be honest with you. There's so many bumps in this circuit that can just catch a car out. And now Van der Waal will go down the Dottinger Hole straight. He'll be delighted to see this part of the circuit. He knows he's very, very close to home. He's nearly 10 seconds up on his lap so far, and he's only just got a couple of little points of the track left to go. A little quick left, right, left, and then he will be home nice and dry. But Van der Waal is backing off. His throttle is pinned to the floor, but he doesn't seem to have any throttle input. So Van der Waal's lap is going to come to a slow end, would be the only way of describing it. You can see he's putting the throttle down, but nothing's happening. So will Van der Waal, will the Dutchman return to the pits? Yes, that's going to be the case. Pit lane's going to be crucial tonight as well. So let's have a look at the times. We've got Goho Renault at the top. I said he was the one to watch before. He is leading by a second and a half from Hartle Toby. He will be hoping that he can have another fight at the front. Mark Chapman, that's a good lap from him. An 8-minute 21.4 to go third. That's what he needs. Dan Hatton is fourth. Harding is fifth. Penders is sixth. Van der Waal has got a lap in. Fabio Matt has got a lap in as well. And someone in the form of John Wells has just come across the line for 7th place. I think he'll be chuffed with that, to be honest with you. Where's Howard Dunn? He's just coming around a left-hander before the end of the lap for himself. MRV8, we've already seen clamping the curves on his way through. One final corner for the V8. And Stuart Packham just clarifying that Van der Waal ran out of fuel. Well, he'll have to be having a chat with his pit crew chief about that one, because that was a shame, because he was on for what would have been a really good lap. He'd have been with Howard Dunn, for that matter. Matt's just coming towards... Actually, no, he's in the pit, so it's Byford Rue. Can Byford Rue get in the top 10? Wouldn't that be a story for qualifying? We've just had someone join in the last minutes before qualifying. That might have been Danny Zoutenbayer, actually, who joined, or Joe Warner, one of the two. But Byford Rue towards the start-finish line in the M6. What's the lap time going to be? It puts him in 9th. Take a picture. What a time to be alive. Byford Rue with his special livery has got himself into the top 10, comfortably so. Goho Renault, and I think that is Hartle Toby who has gone off. I was going to say they're the only other two on track, so Byford Rue is going to start in 9th place. The M4s are going to make up row 4 of the grid. M6s are going to make up the 4th row of the grid. What a delight for the Bavarians here in Germany. The home fans will be going nuts. But Goho Renault, he is no stranger to success in this championship. And he'll be looking to come across the line and extend his pole position margin. As he comes towards the start-finish line, he goes into the pits. Of course he does. Because everything we say sometimes doesn't go the way we originally intended it to. He's back in the pit lane. We're still waiting on Liam Watkinson, actually. My apologies to Liam Watkinson. I didn't see him on the track map, but Liam is still circulating. He's got less than 5 minutes to get around the lap, which he will do from this point. So Watkinson, the only driver now who can get himself into the top 10. I mean, at worst, he'll start in 12th place, which I think he'd be quite happy with, actually. But Goho Renault, of no nationality, I should add. Normally I would say, oh, the Frenchman, the Belgian, the British driver. We have no nationality update for Seb. But for Liam Watkinson, this has been an interesting season for him, I have to say, because whilst he's circulating on track, he's had a number of really good results. I think the first half of the season didn't really go to plan, but he's had an uptick in race results in the second half of the season. You know, at the start, what I mentioned before, he's finishing 16th, 18th, 19th, effectively, and then in the second half of the season, he's had 3 11th place finishes. And that's really strong. And who's just gone? Is that Hartle Toby? I think it is. I think we've just lost Hartle. No, he's there. He's there on the timing tower, but I think he went in the lobby. It had Jordan Harding in 4th place and Mark Chapman in 2nd, so by assumption, Dan Hatton would have been 3rd. We will wait and see what happens with that. But it's Goho Renault who is on pole position. The number 44 has done it again. Hartle Toby joins him on the front row of the grid. Mark Chapman and Dan Hatton are on row 2 with Jordan Harding and Dennis Penders on row 3. Then it's Howard Dunn and John Wells on row 4 with Byford Rue and Van der Waal rounding out the top 10. Fabio Matt was the only driver left to set a qualifying time. All the other drivers, Rich Jarram, Rover Rakatamanga, Tony Manley, Liam Watkinson, Jeffrey Van Buren, Danny Zoutenbayer and Joe Warner failing to set a lap time. And that's important for Van Buren because in the championship fight, Van Buren is 16th. Mark Chapman is 3rd. There are 13 cars between the two, but as I said before, the Nordschleife is not a typical circuit, is it, ladies and gentlemen? It is a circuit that promotes carnage, chaos, commitment and mistakes because of the nature of the beast. So I don't think Van Buren would be too worried just yet. Talk to him with about 30 minutes to go and he'll let you know how he's feeling at that stage. But hello to everyone who is still watching. It's great to see you. Rakatamanga was having some issues. He has got back in. Rover and Rakatamanga was also saying he was aiming for a top 3. He looked quite quick in practice, I have to say, did Rover. He's still searching for that first podium with an ACC Race Nation. I know that he finished in 3rd place a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately a post-race penalty took him out of that discussion. So he's still seeking his first official podium in the championship. I'm going to give myself just a breather before we get started, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens to the invisible Jackman when they drop Rich Jarram's Lamborghini.
Seconds. Seconds. 10 seconds.
Well. We are about to get underway for what will be a 2-hour race here. 17, 18 drivers as the timing tower just updates. Got a few synchronization issues going on, but I just want to get on board with Goho Renault. That is what I'm after. So yeah, you can see Mark Chapman is now in second place. And I think Ross Harris has got into the lobby. And Harald Toby's gone. And that is... He's been kicked out of the lobby. And what looked to be the closest fight for the race victory, Goho Renault is now going to be sat thinking, I've got a 5-second buffer to Chapman in qualifying. I can play with that during the race. But we can't mourn the loss of Toby. Unfortunately, we have this race to get on with. 2 hours, which will take us to 10:30 British Standard Time. I'm excited. I hope you are too. So Sebastian Goho Renault about to get us underway here at the Nordschleife, and the race is live for the final time of season 11. It looks like a relatively good launch from the front two, but I have to say Chapman's doing a good job to go alongside him in towards turn one. Jordan Hardin's there as well as is Dan Hatton. On the brakes they go, and Goho Renault launches it into turn one but gets it wide. He's going to be offline for turn two. Can Chapman get underneath? Not quite. The Aston Martin has to slot him behind, but Goho Renault was desperate to maintain that lead. He wants to get off and up the road as he knocks the cones out of the way. Chapman's in second place. Tony Manley's in 16th position at the moment. There's Dennis Penders in 5th position. He's had a good start for the Belgian. If we can get back to the garage, there we go. We can have a look at the order. So it's Goho Renault, it's Mark Chapman, it's Dan Hatton, it's Jordan Hardin in the top 4, Penders in the top 5. John Wells has maintained position with Byford Rue, but Van der Waal is on the inside of the M6 as they come towards the Schumacher S. Let's see what that camera angle is going to give us. They are briefly side by side, but Byford Rue fends off the McLaren for now. The McLaren will be looking to try and find a way past. Let us get on board with a couple of the drivers. Let's have a dashboard cam, that's what we're after. But Van der Waal in 9th position. There's Rich Jarram in 11th position. And we've got Rakatamanga looking at the inside of Van der Waal. This is brave going into the chicane. The two of them have got to give each other racing room on the first lap. And they do just about survive. But the McLaren retains 9th position. So since we last spoke, Rakatamanga has got past both Fabio Matt and Rich Jarram. So good start for him. Tony Manley in the thick of it. That is Liam Watkinson and Danny Zoutenbayer putting a move on the number 4 McLaren. Joe Warner a little bit further back. Ross Harris has got in. He's not too far away actually after starting from the pit lane. So that's good for him. And Hartle Toby's in the pits. We'll see how that works out, but look at the gap already. They are starting to spread out. Liam Watkinson is off the road, and that's an early issue, and that looks like damage on the car from what I can see. Oh, Penders side by side with Dunn. This is over 5th position. I've said it before about Dennis Penders, I'll say it again. He's a tough customer to overtake. He knows how to battle with other drivers. Dunn's not going to find this easy. See if we can get a rear camera. There you go, you can see the AMR V8. Look how close he is to the back of this 296 GT3. He's right there, but he isn't going to attempt a manoeuvre into the left-hander, and nor will he going into the hairpin. Not quite close enough, but the top 4 have already pulled away. Jordan Hardin 2.5 seconds clear of this fight for the last spot in the top 5. Dunn 6th, John Wells in 7th, who was just said before, he's aiming to just try and get to the end without any dramas. Easier said than done around this track. Byford Rue is still holding up Van der Waal and Van Buren. What a start! What I did say earlier, Van Buren would not really be too worried about starting in 16th. He's up to 10th. What a great lap for him thus far, but he's got a lot more work to do, and that involves getting past his stablemate of Van der Waal and Byford Rue as well. Rich Jarram has got Rover Rakatamanga's attentions, and you can see Rakatamanga has got damage. I wonder if the Frenchman had contact not only with the wall but with Liam Watkinson. Zoutenbayer's in 13th, Manley's 14th, Fabio Matt's in 15th. Although I think Fabio Matt's been in the wall as well. I wonder if there was contact there. Joe Warner was away from all of that earlier. He's been overtaken by Ross Harris. And then Watkinson, that's big damage to Watkinson's car. And I'm afraid that is going to take a long, long time to get that car back. And I think Watkinson will want to try and stay on the lead lap. So I don't blame him for trying to go around the circuit. Harl Toby's got back out. Now, this is reminiscent. You might remember a couple of seasons ago when Danny Zoutenbayer sprung onto the scene. He joined partway through the race and came back to finish inside the top 10. The difference is he was a lap down that day. Harl Toby, as we come towards the sector beam, which will be just about here, and ACC Race Nation decides not to update us on the timing tower, we'll be able to see how far behind he is from the pack. From Liam Watkinson, at least, it's going to be quite a distance. But we'll keep an eye on that gap. But Goho Renault leads the opening 5 minutes of this race, and yet we are still on lap 1. Chapman is second, but that gap looks bigger than 1.6 seconds, if I'm being honest. Dan Hatton and Jordan Harding, they've been very closely matched this season in the McLarens, but that gap has spread just a little bit further. I am going to cut to this fight, though, because Howard Dunn is putting the absolute business pressure on the Belgian that we ride on board with. Let's get a perspective from the AMR. He's right behind them as they come into the carousel for the first time of the event. You can see Penders taking that inner line over the grid. Oh, look at this. Jordan Harding very close to the back of Dan Hatton. What happened there? I think the 55 had a little wobble. I'm going to say it was around the carousel. Less than ideal for him, but he's going to have Harding right with him. And Harding's got his fan club in tonight. So that certainly will be pleasing his fans. Look at Jordan all over the back of Dan at the moment as he come into the downhill section over the right-hander. There you go. And then into the spectator section, effectively near Brunchen. But Hatton looks like he's re-established himself just a little bit. So no real drama for now. But he's got to just shake off any little mistakes and keep focused. Is that Michael van der Waal off? It is! And back to the pits he goes. Or is that a full-blown retirement from Michael van der Waal? I think it is. Yeah, he's gone. Michael van der Waal found the wall. And Michael van der gone. Unfortunately, he is our first retirement of this 2-hour race. That's a massive shame. You know, drivers, and I say this in the honest way, as Van Buren runs very deep at the right-hander there, going through Plantsgar, and he just about kept it off the gravel. I'm a bit disappointed by that, I won't lie. I think, you know, this is such a long race. Anything can happen. Retiring on the first lap. I know emotions are running highly charged, but there was a lot he could have done from there, even with the damage. You know, Liam Watkinson's back in the pits. Things could have changed. I'm just looking at how Toby's gap to Watkinson was just under 2 minutes. So, long way to go for the Ford man. And it's Dan Hatton caught up to... I was going to say the timing tower is giving us all sorts of shenanigans this evening. But now, Howard Dunn, he's going to be with Penders on this straight. And let's just have a look at the rear view camera. Dunn's in the slipstream, and this straight is long enough for the AMR to get through. The cut to the external shot. We'll wait to see which way Dunn goes. Penders has slapped his car right in the middle to really annoy him. He goes to the outside line, does Dunn. And is he going to be through at the left-hander? They're going to be side by side going through the left-hander. They have to give each other a race in the room, and sure enough, Penders backs out of it. And Howard Dunn, using the might of the AMR, moves into the top 5. That is an important overtake for the rest of this race. John Wells is still running in 7th position. Van Buren has just overtaken Byford Rue. So Van Buren at the end of lap 1 has gone from, ladies and gentlemen, 16th place to what is going to now tick over to being 8th position. And is that Rakatamanga going past the M4, M6 as well? I keep calling it the M4 because his number's 467. There's a little bit of contact between the Frenchman and Byford Rue, but no harm done in the end. So the BMW slides down into 10th place, but a great opening 10 minutes for the 467. Danny Zoutenbayer is steadily bringing his way through the gap. What I would say about Danny Zoutenbayer is that whilst he might be a little bit race rusty, as we saw last week at Valencia, as the race goes on, he will get stronger and stronger, so keep an eye out for that. Manley is in 12th, Jarram's 13th, he's sideswiped the wall. Ross Harris is now in 14th place. Matt has gone into the pit lane, unfortunately. That means Joe Warner moves into 15th position. And Hartle Toby is, according to the calculations before, was 1 minute 15 away from what would have been Liam Watkinson at that point. So we'll have to wait and see. But Goho Renault, as he went over the timing beam, was 6 seconds clear of the AMR of Mark Chapman. Champion-elect as it stands. Season 2 champion will set a new record for the longest gap between first and second championships in ACC Race Nation, but I don't think he will see that as a bad thing because it's a championship at the end of the day. Dan Hatton, well, we talked about him not having a podium. Right now, it's looking very strong in the McLaren, but he's in 3rd, and there's still, well, an hour and 50 minutes remaining in this race. Howard Dunn is still circulating in 5th, but he hasn't dropped Dennis Penders from that fight for the last spot in the top 10. Byford Rue, though, is now having the attentions of Tony Manley on his case. So Danny Zoutenbayer has got past whilst we were looking at other situations, and Byford Rue is running in 11th as far as I am aware. We'll see if we can get on board with Tony Manley, see how the race director circulates over to him. So let's ride on board on helmet cam as if we were in the seat ourselves, coming up to Floodplatz, over the crest, down into 5th gear. A lot of confidence from Manley in this AMR V8. In fact, the AMR should be very quick in a straight line. Here we go. Is he going to look to the inside? No, he's going to have to back out of it. Oh, I think Byford Rue was actually almost moving out of the way for a moment, I thought, but that's not the case as he wobbles his way through the left-hander there at Schwedenkreuz before Adenberg. But this right now, the closest fight on circuit, the gaps have already swelled quite significantly, and Ross Harris has gone off the road. We'll just see where Ross has gone off, and we can't seem to ride on board with him, and I think Ross Harris has gone. So that is our second driver retirement. Oh, Rich Jarram. Well, I've seen the Touristenwagen do that before in Audi TTs, so Manley joins a long list of people who will continue to go wide at that corner. But Rakatamanga is now in a 3-car fight over 7th place. We ride on board with Van Buren, who is still doing absolute bits to get to where he is currently, but this will be a tough customer to overtake. And the other thing with the Ferrari is that it is a quick car in a straight line, but the M6 has got the legs on it, so we'll have to wait and see whether he can find a way past. John Wells is no slouch. John Wells always seems to do well around the Nordschleife. It just seems to be a circuit that he gels with. Something I've noticed over the seasons of commentating. It's now a full car fight, by the way, because look, it's Danny Zoutenbayer who has also joined in the train. And I think Byford Rue is been overtaken now by Tony Manley, which we missed, unfortunately. Sorry, Tony, on that one. But Danny Zoutenbayer, he won a bit of the action too. Go through the right-hander. And off we go then. Into Bergwerk. Out of Bergwerk, I should say. And the Ferrari in the slipstream. Now this is where the Ferrari will get an advantage because the track oscillates uphill. So it'll be an advantage to be in the slipstream. But as I said before, the M4's got a clean pair of heels. And I think this is going to be a little bit more challenging for the Ferrari to go through. But John Wells hits the wall. And this might be the opportunity that knocks for him. But John sticks the car in the middle of the circuit. And there's no way through there. Well, that was just a little crack of the wall for John. Looked like it was quite side on. He'll have a bit of damage to go with that, but I think it will be manageable enough. I remember a ridiculous situation 10 years ago when DTM cars went through that corner and several of them just fired off the wall that day. I've seen cars carry on from incidents like that in real world, so John will be able to carry on. Danny Zaltenbayer's dropped back a little bit. He's had an issue somewhere. He's now back in the clutches of Tony Manley for the last spot inside the top 10 as Van Buren struggles with a bout of understeer at the top of Hoacht. Into Whipperman we go. And I think the race is just starting to settle down at the front. The gaps are quite equal. I know that Howard Dunn has made an impression on Jordan Harding and the last split, but this split looks like the McLaren's got a little bit of a comfortable advantage. But Rakatamanga, he's another driver, you know, he said before he was aiming for a top 3 in qualifying. Van Buren almost losing the back end. You can see the ferocity in the wheel of Rakatamanga wanting to get through. He's really working the car. But you feel that Van Buren and... Oh, that's off the road. He was very close going off before on lap 1 and lap 2. At the Plants Garden, he's gone off again. Van Buren struggling as we go through the Belloff. Oh, and there's got to be contact, and I think, yeah, there's an accident behind us. Round goes Danny Zaltenbayer, and he runs into the back of Van Buren, and I think the Ferrari was just trying to get out of the way, and unfortunately Zaltenbayer was unsighted. And that was it, round they went. And that's a massive shame. And I think, if I'm being honest, I don't think anyone was... I can't describe Van Buren as being at fault. His car was sliding all over the race, but he moved out of the way to let Rakatamanga go through. And then, because he'd slowed down so much, Zaltenbayer didn't see it, hit the back of the Ferrari, and round they both went. And that's a massive shame, really. We'll have to get to the external cameras. See, Manley survived that with no problem at all. Byford Roo's got damage on the front end of that car. And just on Hartle Toby, he's now 10 seconds away from Joe Warner. He's a minute and 23 behind Rich Jarram for 13th place. Rakatamanga in 8th, Manley in 9th, and then the race director when it's ready. Yeah, you can see Zaltenbayer's got quite a bit of damage on the front of the car. Van Buren's obviously got it at the back as they go side by side through the left-hander. Zaltenbayer's on the grass. Good Lord, you do not want to run that line at 150 miles an hour through there. Strap yourself into the roller coaster of hell if you're going to that place. Well, Van Buren carries on. Just looks to see if Zaltenbayer carries on. Yes, he does. So Zaltenbayer continues on. The damage not as bad. They were both moving. It wasn't as if the Dutchman of Van Buren was slowed right down. He'd gone to about 3rd gear, and Zaltenbayer was probably at 4th, maybe 5th at that point. So damage will be considerable, but not unmanageable at this point in the race. But right now, let's just give you an overview. 20 minutes down, Goho Renault leads by just under 12 seconds of the champion-elect, that is Mark Chapman. Dan Hatton is now in 3rd, and to be fair, giving Chapman something to think about over the rest of this race. Jordan Harding's 4th, but Howard Dunn has decided he wants to say hello. and he's in the top 5. Penders is 6th. John Wells is up to 7th, or I should say remains in 7th position at a circuit, as I mentioned before, always seems to do quite well round. Rakatamanga is 8th, but that gap is no longer 4 seconds, but as we saw before at the Nordschleife, look at the wheel, the way the wheel wobbles in the Frenchman's hands. It's almost as if he's fencing, you know, if you know what, in terms of the contact sport with fencing, it's so much movement in that wheel, but it's bringing him up through the field. You know, another driver who started outside of the top 10. He's in 8th position. If he does get past John Wells, he's then got to find 14 seconds on Dennis Penders. That won't be an easy task, even if he does catch up to him. Tony Manley runs in the top 9. Then it's Byford Rue who's hanging on to the top 10 again. Van Buren is in 11th position, with Danny Zoutenbayer at 12th. Rich Jarram has been in the pits, but he is in 13th. Hartle Toby actually is in 13th place. The timing tower hasn't updated, so the German is making some gains, to be fair to him. But he now has to find, I'm going to estimate about 60, 70, yeah, about 80 seconds on Van Buren and Zoutenbayer to find the next car to overtake. So it's going to be quite a long race for him. Joe Warner's in the pits for his damage. Fabio Matt is in 16th position, and Liam Watkinson is a little bit further back. He's had some issues from the start of the race. But this is the closest fight at the minute. Rakatamanga, Tony Manley and John Wells all fighting over 7th place. And I say fighting, you've got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that if you were a second and a half clear at a track like Valencia that we were at last week, or any of the other circuits we've been to this season like Spa or Paul Ricard at Le Castellet or anything like that, a second and a half as an advantage is something that you can manage without having to think about too much. A second and a half at the Nordschleife is not something you know that they are there sharing the same piece of tarmac as you. It's a matter of perspective because the circuit's so massive. If you're a second in front of somebody at Silverstone, for example, that feels more like 4 or 5 seconds at the Nordschleife because of how big the circuit is. So John will having to navigate these corners as best as he can. He runs wide, that's wide, he's in the wall, he's slammed into the wall. Can he get back on circuit? He can. Rakatamanga trying to go for a line that probably isn't there. He's got to look to the outside line. We'll ride on board with Tony Manley. But Wells, that's the other side of the car that he's whacked with now with the wall. That was a much more robust meeting this time around, as he had 2 glances of it. But don't forget, Rakatamanga's carrying damage as well from a rear ender earlier on. Is that Wells wide? It looks like it is. He gets back on circuit. Everyone's trying to find the same piece of tarmac, but Wells is defending. If we can get to the action, there we go. Oh, that's a little bit deep from the BMW, but lives to tell the tale. Manley doesn't have any damage. He's the one who's fighting with both hands available to him. And you can see that the way that the Aston bolts out of the corners, it seems quite planted, no real drama. And he's closing in on the Porsche. He's going to have to go the long way round, and Rakatamanga covers the door. You can kind of get away with doing that once or twice because of the nature of this circuit, but I think if he moves too many times, it's not going to go down with the race stewards very well. In fact, Manley just taking a little bit more of a cautious approach through those faster corners. You go on board with Rakatamanga. Down through the gears. Oh, he gets sucked into the concrete area, and you saw him follow the same line as was. And look at Badley right behind us. He is there in the rear view window, not giving a moment's rest to the number 14 Porsche. But Wells is starting to take more caution with his lines in this last part of the circuit. And that's allowing this Constantina effect to come together. Van Buren and Zoutenbayer are very close together on track. They have closed up the gap to Byford Rue, but not by enough yet to warrant switching cameras. You can see Raketamanga's just following the lines that John has. He wants to try and find a way through, but realistically from this point forward, unless Wells makes a mistake, he's not gonna find this easy to get past. At the left-hander we go, over the crest, into Plantsgarten again. Jeffrey Van Buren's favourite corner on the track. The Porsche just hesitating a little bit. Wells goes through the right-hander. The BMW looking very solid in that part of the track. But then Raketamanga closes that gap back up. Over the Beloff S we go. And there's a yellow flag out there briefly. I think it's for Liam Watkinson actually, but he's carried on again into fourth gear, then down into third for the left-hander. That BMW just having a hint of understeer there. That might promote a little bit of action for Raketamanga, but he gets on the power a little bit too early, and that concrete part of the circuit is not as grippy as the tarmac. I just spat the Porsche out a little bit, but this is an opportunity now. He's just got to keep a tight line and get on the power, but he can't. He hesitated a little bit more, and that gap now, 0.4 of a second. Is he close enough to catch John Wells? I'm not sure. Down the Dottinger Hose straight we go again, and John Wells is pulling away. In fact, that Porsche looks quite top limited. 164 miles an hour. You know, the Ferraris are going at 174, so Raketamanga's losing about 10 mile an hour here. And I wonder if he's took this aggressive setup because he knows that... Look at him fighting the wheel. I wonder if he took this setup knowing that he's not going to be as quick, but he wants a car that can fire out of the corners and get onto the throttle as best as possible. But he stays behind John Wells for another lap. So Raketamanga running in 8th position. Thank you, Mikey, for the score update. For those that are curious, in the Champions League, Liverpool 1, Marseille 0. Dominic Soboslai with a free kick in the last minute of added time. That's half time there over in France. But anyway, back to the racing action. We've got Rich Jarram, who has gone round. I think he's gone round somewhere near Whipperman, it looks like, as we still follow Raketamanga just on the rear spoiler of the number 69 in front of us. We are coming up to a quarter of the race distance, and bear in mind that this stream has been going for 1 hour and 19 minutes. I don't think my voice is going to survive to the end of this, but we will try our best, as will Rover Raketamanga, trying to get past John Wells. I'm just going to cut away momentarily just to look at the gaps. Howard Dunn close to the back of Jordan Harding for a spot in the top 4, but Dunn's made some good progress so far. John Wells obviously still running in front of these two. Byford Rue has now got the company of the two Dutchmen of Van Buren and Zoutenbayer along with him. Hartle-Toby is 70 seconds behind those three ahead of him, and that gap is coming down, I have to say. As Raketamanga we follow once again with the big timing race logic board next to us. You can see the big blue in the bottom left corner there. That's where we have been following for most of the evening so far. A little bit, oh, line askew, and there goes John Wells. He spins it round. He's kept it out of the wall, but he has lost 7th place, so the pressure in the end telling for the race director of ACC Race Nation. He spins it round. as we cycle back through in terms of the headset doing its thing. But John Wells, sadly, that spin drops him down to 9th place, and he's not far away now from Van Buren and Zoutenbayer. So this can all change again. How much time did John Wells lose then? Because he went around in an awkward place. He spun one way and then went off the other. So Rakatamanga is 27 seconds behind Dennis Penders. That's how much time he lost behind the M6. I keep saying the M6 and the M4. I keep swapping between the two. It's the grills. That's exactly what it is that keep throwing me out. I know it's the M4 of John Wells. But John is 16 seconds away from Tony Manley. Zoutenbayer, it says, is in 10th. Oh, Van Buren's facing the wrong way. Well, the championship protagonist has lost it in a peculiar place, actually. He's lost it out of Ammenberg. I wonder if he's just got on the throttle too early and spun around. That was that. That was a peculiar place for a car. You don't see cars spinning as far down the road as you do at that corner. It's normally earlier or mid-corner. I wonder if he's just got on the curb and the car's spat it around. But Van Buren's championship dreams are fading away, unfortunately. And he's hit the wall. Look at the rear spoiler. That's definitely not looking showroom ready anymore, is it, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately? In fact, it looks like he's going quite slow. Yeah, there we go. He's going off again. Can he keep it out of the wall? He does a little nudge. But that might be a trip back to... I think he's clamped the wall there, actually. Yeah, that's big damage. That is big damage. If we get on board of the car... Cheers, race director. Let's have a look at him down the straight. Yeah, he's having a look at that. That is a massive... monumental moment in this championship fight. Mark Chapman will not have to worry about Van Buren unless the next 90 minutes of this race play out in a similar way to the 30 minutes that Van Buren has experienced already. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Stuart. Mikey, no need to apologise, mate. I appreciated that update, actually. Thank you very much. Anything else happens, do let me know. But Van Buren will be sliding back towards Hartle Toby, who will be moving into 12th place. Let's just have a look at the other fight that is going on at the moment, which is between Howard Dunn and Jordan Harding. Manley is keeping Rover Rakatamanga quite honest at the minute, but I have to point out that Manley's got a clean car with no problems, but Rakatamanga, I think, is still carrying a not significant amount of damage, but it's certainly not insignificant, let's put it that way. But he's keeping him honest in the AMR, and I wonder if Manley will get a good result tonight. That would be really encouraging. Zoutenbayer has now found himself onto the back of John Wells. So John getting all of the screen time today. All we have seen is his rear bumper. Zoutenbayer trying to find a way past there, but that would have been optimistic. And Zoutenbayer still carrying that damage from earlier on. As you can see on the front of his front. Oh, John Wells back in the wall. Wells meets walls, unfortunately. Sadly for him. And Byford Rue, something's happened to Jacob as well. So whilst we were talking, lots of things have gone wrong. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. In the last 5 minutes of this race, everything's just blown wide open. Accidentally pressed save replay, but there we go. So John Wells is back into the pit, so it does say he's in the lead, but that's not the case. It is still Goho Renault, and is that Manley's gone round as well? My goodness. Everywhere we go, drivers don't want to stay on the race circuit. Yellow flags ablaze. That's for John Wells' slow car. Manley's got damage to the front of that car. I'm just looking to see how significant it is. Doesn't look as bad as I expected it to be. He has definitely nosed the car. just before Flugplatz by the looks of it. Howard Dunn is still stalking Jordan Harding. No real change between those two as of yet. As Dan Hutton sets an 8-minute 26 on that last lap, Howard Dunn sets an 8-minute 29 on the last lap. So Dan Hutton circulating about 2 to 3 seconds quicker than the McLaren and the Aston Martin, fighting over 4th place. We'll get on board with Howard Dunn, and what we appreciate with riding on board of the Aston Martin is that the camera in the AMR, you can actually see what's in front of you because of the way that the camera mountings are positioned in the Ferrari, for example, or the Porsche. It sits a little bit higher up, and that's due to a technical insight by GT3 in the series. It's not a brand placement, it's nothing to do with sponsorship, it's just to do with the technical camera mountings. It's where they have to put them, unfortunately, so that no team gets a specific advantage because of a small camera weight. I know we're talking milligrams, but drivers and teams will fight over milligrams, so they have to have a technical document to say where these mountings can be placed when they're filming the action. But let's have a look at the lap times at the minute. We are comfortably in past the quarter distance mark. Goho Renault has been doing best lap of an 8-minute 20.270, which is about 3.5 seconds off his pole position time. Mark Chapman did a 25.9, that was his best effort on the last lap. 25.9 also from Hatton, so those two circulating quite nicely. Hardin on his last lap did a 28.8, and I'm going to assume that Howard Dunn is a similar time, a 29.2. He's done a 26 though, has Howard Dunn, so you feel that if Howard gets through past Jordan, he might have an opportunity to pull away from the McLaren that we follow currently. Dennis Penders has been doing 8-minute 30s. He's been pretty consistent on that so far, so he'll be happy that he doesn't have anyone around him at the minute as Dunn gets closer to the back of Harding. Rakatamanga's doing 8.31s, but how much of that is limited by his damage, I wonder. As you can see, Howard Dunn closing up towards Flugplatz, but won't make a move there. In fact, Harding very committed through there. Dunn's a little bit wide, and he would have been screaming in that seat as it ran just over the grass. How much further do you want to dice with the walls? Tony Manley's been doing 8.37s. Danny Zoutenbayer last lap did an 8.41, but don't forget he's still carrying that damage. Hartle Toby, who has found himself in 10th place, 8.26. He is comfortably faster than those in front of him. So an 8.28 on the last lap. Next driver he's got to find is Danny Zoutenbayer. He's 13 seconds faster than the Ferrari. So give it 4 laps and he'll be within 10 seconds of 9th place. I can't believe how Hartle Toby, despite the problem he had at the start of the race of getting disconnected, has fought back so brilliantly. But this is the main fight. Howard Dunn versus Jordan Harding for 4th position. It's all about patience for both drivers. You know, for Dunn as the attacker, you're not going to find a way through at corners like this unless Harding makes a clear mistake. He had a wobble at the right hander but gets away with that. But for Harding it's a similar situation. He doesn't have to worry through this section of the track. They both run very wide though. At the right hander has done flirts with the barriers again. But as I was saying, Harding won't need to worry about Dunn trying to throw a move down the inside at a daft corner, because there won't be an opportunity to do it unless he makes a mistake. So Harding will be concentrating on getting his exits lined up. Oh, Byford Rue saying that there was an incident with himself and Van Buren. He was in the middle of the track and Byford Rue went into the back of him, giving him damage, and he also turned off his pit limiter So he's got a 30-second stop and go. Nightmare for Byford Rue. What was shaping up to be a really strong race has unravelled in the worst way possible. He's still on for a good result as far as I can see. If we just go back to the race director, he's still on for a strong result. He's comfortably clear of Van Buren and Rich Jarram, who are in the pits, and Fabio Matt's operating. So I don't think he'll lose his place, to be honest with you. I think he should be okay. But what will happen next now is we are moving into... Dunn runs so wide at Klostertal. What will happen now, the next phase of this race that is really, really critical, is pit stops. You know, we've got to remember this isn't a 1 hour race, it's a 2 hour race. So the drivers will be aiming to pit at around the 1 hour mark, or 15 minutes either side of that. Now in truth, I'd be shocked if anybody didn't take on a new set of tyres. So I don't think we're going to see that type of undercut today. But we may see somebody like Dan Hatton, who is a couple of seconds behind Mark Chapman, pit a lap earlier than what he planned. An undercut round here by pitting 1 lap earlier could give you track position because of the advantage that fresh tyres will give you. Obviously it'll make it harder at the end, that is the offset they have to give, but because this circuit's so long, someone will be thinking about pitting early. Oh, Harding gets through on the curbs. That was rough with Watkinson, but that is okay. He will carry on. Liam Watkinson still circulating in 17th position as Dunn kicks up the gravel on the exit of the Brunchen complex. Brunchen doesn't have a complex, it's just a complex of corners. But Hatton's closing the gap to Chapman. That's 2.6 seconds now, very close between those two as we watch the fight for fourth, the closest fight on circuit. Everyone doing the Dan Gurney school of driving, touching the brakes and then touching them properly. Oh, did you see the way the air got underneath the Aston then? That just pushed Howard Dunn towards the wall for a brief moment. I bet you he had a worried face as he went over the hill, as Harding gets it a little bit wrong through the right-hander. Just about gathers it up together. Look, remains in front. Another wobble. I wonder if the McLaren is struggling with the tyres. That might be a question at this point in the race. But you can see Dunn's all over the rear spoiler. In fact, I think he took the wrong line there. I don't think that was the right line for Dunn. If he'd have gone and followed Harding's line, he'd have got a better exit for the Dottinger straight. I don't think he's close enough. I don't think he's in the slipstream. 0.6 of a second. That closing speed is going to start happening now. Half a second. 174 miles an hour. 173 as they start going up the hill. It is quite aggressive. Yeah, Dunn not close enough. And that was all just to do with the line. So they carry on through the next couple of corners. And I said it was about patience. And just to make a point, Dan Hatton was a second quicker than Chapman on that last lap. I know it's not a lot, but in their fight, when they're only separated by 3 seconds, if you want to call it that, as the timing tower updates, there isn't much going. But Dunn looking more comfortable than the number 16 in front of us right now, and Harding having to defend into turn 1. Dunn taking a wider line to try and set up the exit at turn 2. You've got to be careful not to clip the wall or the curb there, because that will really mess up your exit. It'll either spin you round or you'll plant it head on. Dunn still in contention. Still in contention for a podium, actually, to be honest with you, because if I'm being frank here, you know, the gap between themselves is 14 seconds to Dan Hatton. That's more than doable in a circuit like this. Chappers is still there. Let's just look at the rear view camera. Yeah, you can see Hatton's not far away. Hatton looking to improve on his best ever result of third last week to finish in second. But we still have an hour and a 16-minute session remaining, so he might get in front, but he might not win. You know, it's just so all up in the air. Goho Renault is 20 seconds clear at the moment. I think the Ferrari is just taking it easy. And when I say taking it easy, I don't mean he's having a Sunday drive. I mean he's just driving at about 90% right now. He doesn't need to go flat out. I think that might have been a different story had Hartle-Toby not disconnected in qualifying. I think that might have been a different type of race for the race leader, but alas, we will not know how that ever will have shaped out. So Joe Warner's running in 13th place. It's a good result for him, but I was wondering how much damage he's carrying. Is that going to be too much for him to deal with? Van Buren, and as I mentioned before, was in the pits. Rich Jarram has been in the pits as well. John Wells is 16th. He's not been in the pits, but he has tumbled down the order. I think he returned to pits, but I don't think he actually did anything to the car, interestingly. Byford Rew's still got that penalty to serve. And why does that BMW look more... Yes. Byford Rew has got more damage, so this will drop him below Joe Warner and more than likely behind Van Buren and Rich Jarram. And what was shaping up to be a fabulous race for Byford Rew has unfortunately completely unravelled thanks to that incident with himself and Van Buren. But Hartle-Toby's in 9th. Zoutenbayer is the first to pit. So I did say before, someone might decide to do an undercut, but Zoutenbayer is in pit lane and coming out of pit lane. So I wonder if he's got that damage fixed now. It looks like he has. So let's see what the Ferrari can do with fresh air, because he's only got Hartle-Toby in front of him, but he's on the other side of the GP circuit. And he'll have a fresh car to boot. So let's see what the Dutchman does. The outgoing champion will want to put on a show in this last half of the race. Can he do just that? There's Manley. Rakatamanga running in 7th place. He is catching Dennis Penders. We'll wait for him to go over the timing beam, which is just after Arenberg. And I think that is a yellow flag for Fabio Matt, who we haven't seen much since he pitted earlier. But it looks like he's had a spin and gone backwards into the wall. I think the front of the car... Yeah, he's escaped with a little bit of damage. Watkinson's been in the wall as well, just as we were talking. Tyre wear now starting to become a big discussion point in this race. Hartle-Toby's 33 seconds. Was 33 seconds behind Danny Zoutenbayer. It's no longer the case. Rakatamanga's 24 seconds behind Penders, so he is closing the gap steadily, but in truth, I think that damage needs to come off the car and get fixed before he can try and close up to the Belgian, who, as it stands, if I just have a look at my driver's standings at the moment, Dennis Penders is going to overtake Tony Sokolov, and with him finishing in 5th place, he will score 29, 28, 27... 25, 50 points, which would take him to 5 points behind Stuart Packham. So wouldn't be too far away from... He'd definitely overtake Tony Sokolov. He's going to extend his gap to everyone behind him. So it looks like Dennis Penders is on for 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. Another great season from him. Just having a really good time. Just showing you how important it is to just ensure you finish. You know, if you finish in these races, you can do really strongly, you know, and he demonstrated that last season, did Dennis, when he finished 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. Goho Renault is in the pits. He's not taking any risks. He's not having anyone undercut him, but he will lose the lead of the race for the first time. Oh, actually, Goho Renault has pitted... Yeah. I don't think that's a conventional pit stop. I think Goho Renault's gone back to the pits. Wow. The race leader, what has happened? At first, I thought it was a conventional pit stop, but then I looked at where they were on the race circuit, and that's absolutely not the case. He was 20 seconds clear of Mark Chapman, but that would not have been enough to have put him in the pit lane. He's probably 2-3 minutes away from the pit lane where he was on circuit. So, go ho Renault, we don't know what's happened. But he's back in the pits. Unbelievable. So, Mark Chapman, who, bear in mind, and I will say this much, has not won a race this season, but has been brilliantly consistent, leads here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Dan Hatton is second. Has lost a little bit of time on this lap as Dan, or as the air got underneath the car at Plantsgarten there. Jordan Harding now moves into third as a result, and he's had a little bit of pressure eased off him from Howard Dunn. Not sure if that Aston Martin is carrying a little bit more gravel on it than what it did before. Penders is fifth, so that'll give him an extra 2 points. So I'm going to be honest with you, I know Stuart Packham's watching. If he finds another place, Penders will finish, according to my mathematics, he's going to finish third in the drivers' standings at the expense of Packham. Rakatamanga is sixth and closing on the Belgian. Manley is seventh. Goho Renault is back out on track. But whatever happened to him, we will never know. Unfortunately, it's dropped him down to 8th position according to the timing tower. Make that 9th as Hartle Toby goes around. Hartle Toby's up to 8th place. Just let that sink in for a minute. He joined about 3 minutes after everybody else got to the start, thanks to some technical problems. He's absolutely shot up the field. And can he catch anybody else? I mean, he's lapping quicker than he's lapping quicker than most people in front of him, to be fair. Let me just have a look at that time from him on the last lap. An 8:24. His new personal best of the race. 8:24. He was 16 seconds quicker than Tony Manley, so he'll be on the back of him in, at that rate, 3 laps. He was 6 seconds quicker than Rakatamanga, so that'll take a little bit longer. He was 5 to 6 seconds quicker than Penders on the last lap. 5 again on Howard Dunn and Jordan Harding. 3 seconds quicker than Dan Hatton, and the race leader, which is now Mark Chapman, he was still quicker than by about a second. What might have been for Hartle Toby? It really could have been. It really could have been him celebrating at the top of the podium later, had it not been for the technical problem. But what happened to Goho Renault? He's obviously going to have lost a lap, so he'll be there now. He's in 10th place. I think that is his real position. I thought he'd made an undercut at first, but unfortunately that is no longer the case. So that cracking livery that he runs, the red, yellow and blue, which is the same colour as Romania, so I don't know if he's Romanian just by assumption of colour scheme. I'd be wrong to assume, but if he is, it'd be a great shout if it was the case. But a nice livery that he runs. What can he do now? Where is he in relation to Danny Zoutenbayer? I'm just looking on the track map, and Danny Zoutenbayer is at the top of the race circuit. So he's coming down Whipperman, etc., where the spectator section is. He's a bit before then. So that's what he's got to try and make up. But what a shame. And he's officially not pitted either. So he's going to have to get he's going to have to make a pit stop, which Zoutenbayer's already done. So he's going to keep following. So, right, let's just talk about the big story. Joe Warner is in 10th place. You read that right. Joe Warner is in 10th place. Let's freeze time now. Let's just give him 10th position, because Joe Warner, for those that don't know, Joe is what I would describe as an absolute soldier, really. He's changed wheels this season in the M4, and he has had what can only be described as a battling season. He is being caught by Jeffrey Van Buren, so he might lose 10th place in a moment. But I don't recall the last time he finished in the top 10. I know that he has finished in 11th a number of times last season. I think this season, just off the top of my head, I think his best place is 14th. I think he's had a couple of 14th place finishes. But if memory serves me correct, I think it is, yeah. I think last season his best finish was 11th place. So Joe Warner currently on for a best finish of the season, but he does now have Van Buren behind him. And, Joe Warner hits the wall, so Van Buren will never have an easier overtake in his life. Moves into 10th spot. So Van Buren back into the top 10. His recovery drive continuing on. And don't forget, he's already pitted, so will he want to make another pit stop? I don't yet know. Is that Dan Hatton round? That's Dan Hatton round. Dan Hatton's gone off the road. And what looked to be a race victory charge has ended up with him spitting into the barriers. He's gone backwards into the wall. You can see the damage on the back of the car at Adenauer Forest. And that just shows you how hard he was pushing. He was losing time to Chappers, and I just think his tyres were starting to go. I think he was struggling. And unfortunately, it's seen him drop away. And Mark Chapman, the champion-elect, the man who has not won a race so far this season, but has had more podiums than, to be honest, anybody else in the championship fight, is on his way to a first win of the season. You know, for Chappers, he's had if I remember correctly, he's had 6 podiums this season. You know, second and third places, but no top step victory as of yet. You have to go back to, I'm just trying to recall from my own memory banks, really. You know, the last time that Mark Chapman won in the championship, I'm going to say it was in season 10. I think I remember him getting a victory at round... Oh, no, Dad. This is... I'll be honest with you, this is really stretching my memory here. I think it was at the 4th round of the championship. I think was the last time that Mark Chapman had a race victory. As he nearly goes off the road, as I was talking. I mean, does anybody want to win this race at this point? You know, you have to question that. The amount of people we've seen going off the circuit or spinning round and all sorts of things. It's just been absolutely bizarre this evening. I think I remember Chappers winning at round 4 last season. And I think I remember it because I didn't commentate on that race. I think it was the only race I missed last season where he won. I can't remember the track it was at, but it was. I think he definitely. I'm going to say he definitely won at that race that I didn't commentate on. But we have to go. You know, you have to go back nearly 20 races since he took the checkered flag first over the line, and it's no less than deserved. Let's be honest. As we approach the halfway point of this race, it's no less deserved from him because, as I said before, 6 podiums in a very highly competitive championship is nothing to sniff at. He deserves a lot of praise for what he's done this season and the way he's driven. And he hasn't been involved in nonsense, really. He had a bit of a tough time back at round 3 when he finished in, I think it was 19th that day. But apart from that, at Imola, when he had all those problems, he's had a solid season. Every race he's been in the top 10. More often than not, he's in the top 5. So he's a worthy winner. And there'll be other drivers like Tony Sokolov, like Hartle Toby, maybe even Sebastian Gorhov-Renault and a couple of others who might think, well, if I had a full season, I could challenge him. But you didn't, in the nicest way possible. And that's the thing. Consistency is just as important. And whilst those aforementioned drivers might have more race wins than him this championship, they have not put together the campaign that he has. And Chapman is on his way to being a well-deserved champion, but he's still got an hour to get through. He can't afford to DNF or have any technical issues. I don't want to jinx anybody. That's something that he's got to navigate. And he's going to have a 21-second buffer over Dan Hatton, who I wonder if he'll decide to pit on this lap, because it is the right time to do it. I am a race strategist at heart, but I think with Hatton was already losing time anyway with the tyres. Maybe it was maybe this is the lap to come in, get a new fresh set of boots on. And if Chappers doesn't pit with a new set of tyres, he could still... You know, he still could, what I was saying before the headset did its periodic switch off, you know, for Dan, he could still catch up to Chapman if he does an undercut. Just look to see what Chappers does. He carries on. Wonder what Jordan Harding's thinking right now. Mr. Strategy himself will be debating what to do here. The top 7, the only drivers in the top 10 yet to make a stop. Getting updates from Mikey to say that Goho Renault actually had a disconnection. Hatton's in the pits. I thought he would. Harding carries on. Dunn is in the pits. So this is now a critical phase of the race. Howard Dunn and Dan Hatton are looking to do undercuts on the drivers around them. Now Hatton will probably change and get his damage sorted. So what will happen with Howard Dunn? Penders is in the pits too. Manley is still a ways away as we now finally tick over to the second half of this race. Byford Rue was saying that he got 8 minutes worth of damage and then he got a black and orange flag as he tried to take it back to the pit lane. That's a shame, Jacob, because as I said before, he was having a stellar race and then he had that incident with Van Buren and sadly it just hasn't recovered from there. But still be proud of what he achieved in the first part of this race. It was really competitive from him. You know, he can mix it, can Jacob, with the regular top 10 point scorers. It's got to be encouraging for the season ahead in season number 12, which will be happening later on in the year. I did briefly have a yellow flag. But that has now been removed. Dan Hatton coming out of the pits. And look at that, he's behind Howard Dunn. And who's that? And Howard Dunn has ruined it for himself. He just got himself into a net podium position. And he sped on the exit of the pit lane. And he'll be kicking himself for that, because that'll take him right out of contention. Oh, he'll be furious at that. That was such a golden opportunity for what would have been his first podium in the series. Well, I always like an underdog. When they get their first podium, it's always great to see. But for Dunn, I don't know how he comes back from that unless there's issues for drivers around him. So that brings Dennis Penders up to 4th net position. Tony Manley's in the pits. Hartle Toby's in the pits. Toby's actually hit the wall at some point. That's the first time I've seen damage on his car, but it just shows you how quick he was running. These two will be getting their damage fixed. Rover Rakatamanga, some sort of visual glitch going on, but he is out on... Or is he back in the pits, or is he just disconnected? What has happened there? Because I can no longer select his car. We'll have to wait and see what's going on with that. I'm looking... The number 14's on track. Yeah, it must have been... There's some weird glitch going on with that 992 Porsche. Tony Manley exits the pits. Didn't look like he got that damage fixed in the end, but Toby did. So the German will re-emerge in front of Danny Zoutenbayer, which he'll be happy about. So Toby will be in a net. Yeah, there's some weird visual glitch going on with Rakatamanga. I'm not quite sure what is happening with that car. But Hartle Toby should be in front of him, but he isn't. He's behind him because of the damage. So Hartle Toby is in 8th place as we can't reconnect back to Rakatamanga's car. Now, critical stages of this race. We are 56 and 48 seconds remaining. Howard Dunn is in 3rd position on the road. He was 2 and a bit seconds behind Jordan Harding when they went into the pits earlier. And currently, Howard Dunn is 74 seconds behind. Let's ride on board with Dan Hatton. in the new fixed-up McLaren that he is running in the 720S GT3 Evo. But this has been a proper race of attrition tonight. The drivers have not found this easy, and nor would they really. But right now, Hatton's in a unique position here, because he'll be thinking to himself, I know Howard Dunn's got a penalty, so I don't have to worry about overtaking him. But he'll also know that if Dunn isn't going quick enough, he's going to lose time to Harding. So he's in a tricky position here. Hatton won't want to lose track position to Jordan Harding, because they're both in the same car, and that'll be a massive challenge to get past Harding. As we saw earlier, Dunn spent half of the second stint, if you want to call it the second quarter of this race, stuck behind the McLaren. That's wide from Dunn. A right-hander retains track position. For those that are wondering, back at Marseille in the Orange Velodrome, Liverpool are 2-0 up against Marseille. That's wide from Dunn, and is that a move for Hatton? That is a really unconventional place to make an overtake, and Hatton is back on for a podium. Looks like there's been an own goal by the Marseille goalkeeper there, so 2-0 for Liverpool. Of course, if you are interested in other goal score lines, just to make you aware, Atletico Madrid finished 1-1 with Galatasaray earlier. Bayern Munich are 2-0 up. Chelsea are 1-0 up. Juventus are leading Benfica 2-0. Newcastle are 3-0 up against PSV. And Barcelona are winning 4-2 against Slavia Prague, just so you know. But back to the action, and on board with Dan Hatton, we've got Rich Jarram facing the wrong way at the carousel. Just trying to see the gaps between Hatton and Harding at the moment. Looks like the timing tower is all over the place, to be honest with you. It's saying 96 seconds when before it was saying 73. It's really difficult to determine where it is. Look, it's gone from 95 to 81. Whoa, Hatton, what's he done? He's put it in the wall. Oh dear, now that, I'm going to be honest with you, that is almost, I don't like to be critical of drivers, but for Dan, that was a bit clumsy. He's gone over the curb on the straight, and it's just spat him into the wall, and oh, well, he can thank his stars that Howard Dunn's the one behind him with the stop-go penalty, but if he's got damage, he's going to lose the podium to Dennis Penders. What did I say about Dennis before? He's a driver who is Mr. Consistent, who doesn't get into trouble, and that's why he ranks so highly in the driver's standings every single season he's been with ACC Race Nation. He just improves. And he's on for, well, at the minute he's on for a net fourth. It could be a net third. If this damage is significant for Dan Hatton, he's going to lose a podium spot. Look at him. Dennis Penders, 48 seconds clear of Rakatamanga. 70-ish seconds clear of Tony Manley, who has got Hartle Toby with him in terms of the same sector. Right on board with Howard Dunn. Mark Chapman in the pits. Race leader into pit lane. Still got to wait for a bit of time before Harding gets there. He's about 20 seconds behind the race leader. Let's just see if there's any slowdown for the McLaren 55 in front of us. Oh, he's on the curb again. And Dan Hatton's car is starting to wobble about, and look at the action here. Here goes Howard Dunn. Even if Hatton moved out of the way, that was I'm going to say a ballsy move from the number 23. He's going to understeer into the gravel though, and these two are starting to make mistakes now. They both know that they're both under pressure for a podium, but the two of them are concentrating on each other so much that Dennis Penders is like, hello, don't mind me, I'll slowly catch up to the back here without you watching me, because that gap's now nearly 7 seconds. It was 10.5 before. Jordan Harding is in the pits. He's technically got the race lead because he's in front of Chapman's pit box. But that will cycle back towards Chapman. And there you go. Chapman now leaving pit lane. I'm curious to know where... So there's Dunn doing 174. Can we get to Hatton 167? He's got... That's not insignificant damage, is it? That Hatton's carrying. I'm just looking at the pit box of Jordan Harding at the moment. It's not moving. I think Howard Dunn will try and get in front of him. That'll be the goal. And there you go. Harding's now moving. Where is he on circuit? Come on, race director. Give us what we're after. No, he's going to be in front. He's going to be absolutely fine. So Harding retains second place, which Jordan will be delighted with after the shenanigans that have gone on around him. So he'll be in second. Howard Dunn now moves into third position. Dan Hatton's settling back down again, but he is only 6.5 seconds clear of Penders. Rover Rakatamanga has found himself in 6th position after starting outside the top 10. He's had a good race. Manley is 7th, but here comes the Mustang. Oh. Take a breath. Look how far he's going. I think Hartle Toby has fully engaged his turbo lawnmowering service. How did he stay on the road then? I thought that was into the wall monumental accident at the final corner before Dottinger straight, but no. The Mustang keeps it on the road. Wow. I'm shocked. I am shocked. Hartle Toby. He is now making those gains on Tony Manley. In fact, I might ride on board with Hartle Toby in a moment. Danny's out by his knife. Jeffrey Van Buren is in 10th. Sebastian Goho Renault is in front of him. So actually Goho Renault is now 10th. But the former race leader has not made a pit stop yet thanks to his disconnection, which is a massive shame. Fabio Matt is 12th. Joe Warner's in 13th. Watkinson's 14th. And Byford Root is 15th as well. We have lost a couple of cars to retirements, which is a great shame. Let's get a lap on board of Hartle Toby. See if we can catch up to Tony Manley in this lap. So 5 seconds. In fact, you could see the Aston Martin just up the road. So the German, in front of his home fans, is making some significant gains on 7th place. He's got a chance at 6th thanks to Howard Dunn's stop and go penalty, but we'll see how that shakes out. He is 80 seconds clear of the German, admittedly, so that'll be quite close. But Manley coming through the hairpin here, and exits quite nice and clean, actually, to be fair. Ross Harris was also saying about his retirement earlier, his pedals kept disconnecting. John Wells in the end retiring as well, so another driver who suddenly went earlier on. But Hartle Toby is the man that we are watching currently, and he is siving into that advantage that the Italian in front of us has. And look at him, you can see the black 318 in front of us currently on circuit. I think that is Goho Renault in the pits now. So he's made his only pit stop of the session. I just want to see the difference in commitment between one of the drivers on the front row and Tony Manley, who is typically a midfield driver. That's not a criticism of Tony Manley, he's a solid midfield driver. But you can just see that, look at that, he's buzzing off the limiter in the Mustang, is Toby. He just has a level of confidence at his home circuit that other drivers don't have. As he builds up through the revs. I wonder what that fight would have been like with himself and Goho Renault. I wonder how tense that would have been. Building up through the gears, up to Flugplatz, into the right-hander. He's using all of the curbs and more, is the German. As he approaches Svedenkreuz, He's already less than a second behind Manley now, so he's gained 5 seconds on this lap. 173 miles an hour. Look at the commitment through there. Look at that. I mean, I'm smiling because I'm just amazed by the commitment. He was completely flat. He's got so much trust in that car, but now he has to find a way through Manley, and that won't be easy. Manley will defend this for what it's worth, but Toby will just pick his moments. He'll wait for the Italian either to A, make a mistake, or B, nip through on one of the longer straights, because that Mustang will show a clean pair of heels. Look at the traction that he gets off the corner, sitting right underneath there, and look at that, he's prized the door open. Manley's not going to be able to cover that. He's still there on the inside, and down the inside goes Toby, and that was brilliant at Metzgerveld. And I said it wouldn't be easy for Toby, but Manley didn't, don't get me wrong, Manley didn't make it easy for him, but Toby just made it look like a straightforward overtake. But overtaking into Metzgerveld is not easy at all. Fabulous overtake, and the Mustang can now go after Rover Rakatamanga, and that is going to be fascinating. I'm excited to see what the speed differential is, and again, Rakatamanga no slouch this evening. He's flew up through the field. Dunn and Hatton separated by about 2 seconds. Penders has not made the inroads that I thought he would, so maybe Hatton will hang on for a podium. Let's just have a look at these times. So on the last lap, not representative for Chapman, but he did an 8:25 before he came into the pits. Harding did an 8:30. Howard Dunn on the new tyres. It's not really a classified time. We're still waiting for that to synchronise. So let's have a look. Rakatamanga's last lap was an 8:25 flat. So now that he's got his damage fixed, the Frenchman back up to speed. And Hartle Toby did a 23. So Toby is probably about 2 seconds quicker a lap than Rakatamanga. So that won't be easy for him to pull the advantage down. Penders was doing 8:29, 8:32, so he's about 7 seconds a lap slower than Rakatamanga, and 9 slower on his last lap compared to Toby. Oh, look how close. You see that in the background then of Toby, how much he's running the cut. I'm amazed he hasn't had a mother and a father of an accident yet, but the gap between Rakatamanga and Penders is 42 seconds at a rate of 7 seconds a lap. It would take him 6 laps to catch him. It's possible that Rakatamanga could catch Penders on the last lap. It is possible, but he'd have to keep that form up all the way to the end of the race, and as we've already seen, that is not easy to do. Hartle Toby, at the moment he's on for 7th place. He could get 6th, depending on Dunn's stop and go. Just watching Howard Dunn's actually on the main straight at the minute, so we'll just go back to him. He's still in 3rd place. Hatton hasn't closed up to him, and I think that damage is hindering the 55. You know, that mistake he made before, unfortunately. I think Goho Renault has been in the pits for quite a period of time, actually. So, unfortunately for Seb, it's not going to be the result he would have expected. We are down to 15 drivers left in this race. There's a slow Byford route trying to get past there, not ideal, and Howard Dunn moves into the pits. So that podium position falls away from the Aston Martin, unfortunately, so it makes it an Aston Martin 1, McLaren 2-3. Penders, as a result of being 4th, he's only 6 seconds behind Hatton now, but I think that was more because Hatton got stuck behind a slow-moving Byford Roo than anything else. And Dunn now is going to serve 30 seconds, so Rakatamanga will go past and into the top 5. and again, what could have been without the damage for the Frenchman, you know, since he's got that car fully fixed, he has been electric. His lap times close to Hartle-Toby's, who has been the fastest man on circuit in his pursuit back up through the grid. I think Howard Dunn is going to come out. Whereabouts is he in the pit lane? He looks like he's about halfway down. There we go. He's moving out now, so he should be okay. Yeah, he's actually right at the end of the pit lane, so he's going to be fine. But he's unfortunately lost 5th place to Rakitamanga, who will now set off in pursuit of Dennis Penders again, but this time over 4th place. Penders is not far away from Dan Hatton, who has to just keep it on the road to make sure he gets his 2nd podium of the season. Jordan Harding will be delighted with this, and he will be looking at what would be a 2nd podium of the season for him, his last coming all the way back at Red Bull Ring, which was coincidentally another 2-hour race that we did at the time. So Jordan's approach to the longer races always seems to pay dividends for him. It's not often that he doesn't have a good result. I remember the Bathurst race a couple of seasons ago where he just kept it out of the wall and he finished 2nd that day compared to everyone else. So his approach has always been a solid one, and that's what makes the difference in longer endurance racing events, and that's something for everyone to learn by. You don't necessarily have to be the fastest driver to get race victories in endurance sessions. So take Harding as a bit of inspiration really for everyone who is out there. Just said that Howard Dunn was 500ths of a second behind Penders, but that is not clearly the case. You can see that Penders is there and Howard Dunn is still on the GP loop, so he's not anywhere near the Belgian, unfortunately. But it's been one of those races this evening that has had quite a bit of action. But we are now moving into the final quarter of the session. We are having some server issues. I can just see the quality of the server is having a few problems, but we haven't had any disconnections so far during the course of the race. I'm just going to say that in the way that I've just done. But Hartle-Toby now 20 seconds behind Howard Dunn. And let's just have a little look once again at the lap times. Again, not representative of Howard Dunn, but we will look and explore. Howard Dunn's best lap at 26.9. He's done that once on the 2nd lap of the race. Before his pit stop, he did an 8.29 and an 8.30.8. And compare that with Hartle-Toby, who's doing 8.24 on the last lap. So 6 seconds faster on that last flying episode. Howard Dunn 18 seconds behind Rover Rakitamanga. Dennis Penders back out to closer to 8 seconds. It's a stop and go penalty for Liam Watkinson, but he is 3 laps clear of Jacob Byford, so that won't be a problem for him to have to deal with. So whilst I just did a quick reset then. Go back out there. Hartle-Toby, maximum commitment for the rest of this race. I think you have to give him plaudits for even to get into where he is right now. And he's improving on his best lap at the moment. He's up by 1.2 seconds. That's the timing tower is flitting around a little bit at the moment. We'll have to come back to it, but I have to say, this is very reminiscent of Danny Zoutenbayer a couple of seasons ago when he joined a lap down and finished in the top 10. I think Hartle-Toby deserves definitely a a mention for driver of the day. And I've not talked about driver of the day all season, actually. It's not something that we've gained an extra point for the drivers in this championship, but I haven't mentioned it as a result of the season scheduling in terms of my calendar to the race calendar. And not that Hartle Toby would get an extra point if I did give him driver of the day, but he is absolutely flying this evening. And I wonder if he's going to go any quicker. We've got, Fabio Matt has just returned to the pits. As Toby had a little slide on the exit there. Thank you very much, Mikey. Appreciate that. That's good to know. Cracking results if you're a Liverpool supporter. Liverpool have just won at 3-0 against Marseille. Cody Gakpo getting the third on the score sheet. But at the minute, Toby won't know about any of that, nor probably will he care, because he is trying to find out whether he can catch Howard Dunn or not. Now, the timing tower at this point of the circuit wildly fluctuates. You saw it went down to 17 seconds. It's back up to 19 now. And I think if we won't get a proper representative lap from Howard until the next lap, but if Toby is catching him at a rate of 4 to 5 seconds a lap, Toby will catch him before the end of the race. It takes about 8 minutes to get 8 and a bit minutes to get around this circuit for our drivers, and that'll give us 4, maybe 5 laps, depending if Mark Chapman decides to completely back off the throttle. It's his decision if he decides to do that. Look at the time, and look at the top left corner. Just watch this. Just look at the commitment that Toby is showing. We do have a yellow flag, but it's just for Drew car being in the pit lane, unfortunately. Why that produces a yellow flag, I'm unsure. But the lines are... Oh, look at that. He's not giving up, has he? You saw him on the exit of Brunchen just power sliding off the corner. And look at this, it's down to 14.5. He's 3 seconds up on his lap. This is going to be perhaps a new fastest lap of the race. Over the Beloff S. Flies through there, absolutely flat to the floor. Look at the bottom right corner for your throttle and brake indicator through this next couple of corners. Committed, backs out of it, commits again, settles the car, brakes, slow, bolts on the power immediately. You don't see it very often around the Nordschleife on sim racing games, but this is a driver who's very much in tune with his car. He's just got to make sure he gets this final corner right so he doesn't lose all of the time he's gained on the lap. Wow, the car, how he's hung on to that. But that's the problem, you see. What did I say before? If he doesn't get the line right, he's going to lose time, and it'll probably have lost about half a second, if not more, because of that as he goes onto the Dottinger straight. He's only 11 seconds behind Howard Dunn. I think Howard's had a mistake on this lap. 8:24.6 from Rover Rakatamanga further up the road. That's a really great effort from the Porsche man. 8:24, fantastic effort from the Frenchman. We'll just wait and see what Howard Dunn does. We can't see him on the track in front of us, but we know he's a lot closer. 9:27, but of course he's been in the pits. A little brush of the barrier for the Mustang, no harm done. Is he going to get into the 8:21s? I think so, and it is, and it's a new fastest lap of the race at 21.5. 3 seconds quicker than Rover Rakatamanga. This is astonishing pace. Fastest lap on qualifying was from Goho Renault, which was a 8:16 earlier. Now, the drivers aren't going to do these qualifying laps because they're carrying race fuel, of course, but that is electric, and he's now less than 10 seconds away from Howard Dunn. We'll cut back to that fight a little bit later. Des Penders is just falling away from Hatton at the moment. He's on for 54 extra points in the championship, and that'll give him 370. No, that'll give him 388 points, which will put him level with Stuart Packham, but it won't be enough because Packham has more race wins. So at the minute, Packham will take third place in the Drivers' Championship, tied with the Belgian right here. So Dennis Penders will be finishing in the technically top 3 again in the season. He finished second in season 10. Bear in mind he got his first podium this season ever in ACC Race Nation, I must add. I'm still slightly disappointed that I never got the chance to see that. For those that don't know, Barcelona have, I believe, won 4-2 against Slavia Prague, if you're interested. But the gaps have started to float out a little bit now, and we go into the last quarter of the race wondering what happens next. Mark Chapman still leads the way, long-time race leader after Sebastien Goho-Renault had those issues. He's still in the lobby, but unfortunately he's in the pits. I think he has disconnected, so that's a great shame, really. It's the big question of what that fight could have looked like between himself and Chapman had he have not retired, because Chapman still could, in theory, have caught up to him. And the other big question is, what could have the fight looked like between himself and Hartle-Toby? You know, that is the fight that we were denied thanks to the technical issues that the German had. Rakatamanga is closing on Dennis Penders. Last lap at 24.6. Penders did a 30.6, so Rakatamanga was 6 seconds quicker than him, but he won't. It depends how much time we've got left. Penders might get met by Rakatamanga before the end of the race, but it just depends if we have 4 laps or 5. If we have 4, then we will see Penders, providing he doesn't have any issues, finish in 4th place. If we have 5, Rakatamanga will be on the back of the Belgian. Danny Zoutenbayer has found a bit more rhythm in this race since he had that damage fix and he's been on his own circulating. He has closed the gap a bit to Tony Manley, but the outgoing champion, I think what's happened, I talked about it before with Zoutenbayer. He was leading the championship, going into what would have been at round number 10. He was leading the championship at that point, and then he sadly didn't participate in the next 3 races, and he just hasn't moved in terms of the Drivers' Championship. He's fallen out of it, and I think had he have competed in those races and looking at his average finishing results, which, judging from, again, a very quick calculation of my own that I've got here, he was finishing in the top 7 most races, top 6 even. If you add a possible 23 points per race, times that by 3 gives you 69. Feel free to laugh for those that are watching. He would have been on 344 points. So he would have been in contention tonight, potentially. But alas, that's not the case. So he has to get past Tony Manley, really, to overtake him in the drivers' standings. He will, I believe, he's in 9th place, so he will probably overtake Tony Sokolov, perhaps. No, he won't, actually. So Danny Zoutenbayer, if he wants to get in the top 10 in the driver standards, he needs to get past Tony Manley. Hartle-Toby now is only 6 seconds behind Howard Dunn. Less than half an hour of this race remaining as Zoutenbayer has a huge snap of oversteer on the exit of the bridge corner there. He was very close to getting that wrong on the exit of, well, it's effectively X-Mull is what you would describe as that section. Goho-Renault's back out on circuit. Last lap at 8:22.222. But the race leader and pole sitter, he's going to score points this evening. For Goho-Renault, if I just have a look in terms of the championship standard, because he hasn't done that many races. He is actually quite far down the championship order, but it will move him quite comfortably away from a bunch of other drivers. So if he finishes in 14th place, give him 34 points, and it'll move him from 30th in the Drivers' Championship, probably up into potentially the top 20. Top 25, yeah, it'll move him into the top 25, so he'll be happy enough with that. We've had loads of other drivers take part this season who aren't racing tonight, who deserve a mention. Let's cut forward to Mark Chapman though, whilst we're talking about those drivers. Steve Hall, he's just not had the opportunity to race this season. He did show up at round 1. He finished 4th there at the opening race at the season, but sadly since Silverstone he just hasn't been able to make it. So unfortunately for him, that's not been a true representative 31st driver's standing finish for him. Josip Kosic, let's not forget him. He's not appeared since round 5. He won at Imola for round 3, and everyone was thinking, oh no, the Swede's going to have a championship challenge again, but again that didn't come out. Colin Gallagher, he was another one who didn't appear after round 5, which is a shame. Simon Whiting, another good driver who's competed for the championship before of ACC Race Nation. He's still in the Discord, he still talks, but unfortunately haven't seen him since his podium at round 4 at Zolder when he finished 2nd. Sebastian Berger, what might have been for him this season, 4 races that he's competed in, 2 victories, 2 DNFs. We haven't seen much of him, which has been a great shame. Mark Gray, another driver in the Ford Mustang. He had that, don't forget, he had that 3rd place all the way back at round 3 in Imola, and had a bunch of other good results, but you haven't seen him since this side of 2026. You know, another solid driver who we hope he'll be back for the championship next year. Phoenix Night Train, the Swiss driver. I haven't seen him since Paul Ricard when he finished 7th, and he finished finished on 95 points. He only did 4 races in the championship, but he's been quite high up. He's one who was doing quite well in the Porsche. Ross Harris, we mentioned, we briefly saw him a moment ago. A staple of the championship is he. Davies Altenbayer, Danny's brother, don't forget, famously got that first race win of his back at that infamous round 8 at Paul Ricard when he took advantage of all the carnage. And we haven't seen him much, unfortunately, since round 10. The last race he did was at Brands Hatch, and that was it. So another driver who in 2026 hasn't reappeared in the racing. And then Tony Sokolov, another driver tonight who you feel if he were to put a full championship campaign together, he could fight for a championship, but he just hasn't been able to. You know, he's retired from 3 races, and that's what separated him from the championship crown. You know, those 3 DNFs have counted against him. So whilst he does have a 100% podium record, does Sokolov, he also has at least a 5th of his championship has been spent in the garage after a retirement. So that's something for him to improve on for the season ahead. We haven't seen Danny Felix for a while either. Another driver who likes to get involved, a good guy in general. We haven't seen him for some time. In terms of the other drivers that I would mention who have been a part of ACC Race Nation, but we haven't seen them for a while. Nicola Gradan was due to race last week, but that didn't happen for us in the end. I haven't seen Nicola Gradan for a couple of seasons actually, but the Croatian would have been good to see him. Josh Welbelove had his issues last week, had a couple of races he could have raced in as well. Davi Seixas, who had that race at Monza, hasn't been able to show up since then. And that's been it, really. So, we've had a lot of drivers who, the season has been very long, and we sadly have just not seen a couple of drivers been able to do the full 15-round calendar. And whilst in some cases that hasn't affected a lot of drivers, it does, sadly, we do miss them in the grid. Liam Watkinson has gone round whilst I was talking. John Wells actually just confirming there we will be starting work on season 12 shortly. So that is something to get excited about, ladies and gentlemen. But we aren't on season 12 yet. We are on the last 21 minutes of season 11. What a season it's been. There's been really good racing action, to be honest with you. In the events that I've covered and in the events that I've missed, the drivers have had some really surprising results. Going back to the 2-hour races that we had, Hartle Toby getting a race victory, the only one that he's had this season. You've had Dennis Penders getting his first ever podium when they did the Spa 2 hours. I think my favourite race of the season has had to have been Le Castellet at Paul Ricard. It was so chaotic because of a number of incidents that happened that evening, and it ended up with, as I said before, Davy Zoutenbayer taking his first ever victory in the championship. That was a wonderful day. Sorry, a wonderful podium for him that day behind his brother. The first, I think, ever first Zoutenbayer 1-2 in ACC Race Nation, and probably the first podiums celebrated by two of the same family members in the championship. Stuart Packham that day. Oh, Chapman's in the wall! Chapman's put it in the wall whilst I've been talking, and he's bounced back off the wall. What's he done? Whilst I was talking, I can't believe it. My voice is broke like a prepubescent boy then, but my goodness, Mark Chapman, do you want to win this race or do you want to give it to Jordan Harding? He's walloped the wall as well, quite dramatically there. Wow, wow, wow. Mark Chapman, he walloped the wall when he was getting the car turned. Maybe he panicked. My goodness me. The only driver who's put together a solid race without any... Actually, you know what? Commentator's curse is such a bad thing from me. I won't say who it is. I'll say it at the end of the race. But Mark Chapman, I was saying before, he's not had a race win this season. Don't throw it away now. I know he's on the cusp of winning the championship, but not like that. He lost 16 seconds then. He's still got a comfortable buffer to Jordan. Don't get me wrong, it's 28 seconds, but you don't want to be doing that again. The 111, aiming to get his first one in season 11. Looking to get a second Drivers' Championship. Don't be doing that again. John, yeah, I agree, John. This race circuit has it all, doesn't it? It's just a fabulous track, and it's to be honest with you, it's one of my favourite racetracks in the world, and it's for the pure spectacle. It's a circuit that I know very well, and most racing esports drivers know it very well, to be honest. But I just love the way it is, and I'm just watching Chapper's top speed here. He's okay. He's got away with that. 173, 172. He's lost a little bit of top end, but it's not going to be too dramatic for him. 17 minutes and 30 seconds. This is going to be very... I think Chappers is going to have to do another lap, you know. I don't think he's... Because of that mistake, I don't think he's far enough clear to back off the throttle to make that his final lap of the race. I think we might have a third lap of racing to go. So I think we're on the third to last lap here. If he hadn't spun it, he could have backed off, I think. But with Jordan being less than 30 seconds behind, his best times, he's been doing 8:25s, 8:30. 8:30 times by 2 gives you 17 minutes, which we've just ticked onto. It's going to be close. He might get away with it. I think, to be honest with you, the first thing he'll do is concentrate on not spinning again. Hartle Toby, 6 seconds behind Howard Dunn, and he's been in the wall. So that's why he's not caught up to the back. of the South African. But the South African running in 6th place, he's on his way to a top 10 in the drivers' standings. That 4th place, that double 4th place he's had, looks like they're going to be his best results of the season. If I'm honest, this is the first missed opportunity for Howard Dunn to get a podium in this series. But I will say this much to him. Dan Hatton had a number of missed opportunities to get his first podium. And in the end, he did pull it off last week. And now it looks like he's going to get his second as it stands. So they will come to the South African. But I think for him, it'll be a case of trying to fend off Hartle Toby, which, judging by that Mustang, it looks like it's limping a bit now. In fact, he's whacked both sides of it. So yeah, Hartle Toby doing 163 miles an hour. So I don't think Dunn's going to have to worry too much. I think Toby's charge will be stopped in 7th place, but still a great recovery drive from the German. I think the fans will be pleased with that. I think he's probably, if I were to compare this to one of the pre-war efforts of German drivers, I think I'd say he's probably reminding me of Manfred von Brauchitsch, who, for those that don't know, he was one of the Mercedes-Benz drivers of the 1920s. He was quite infamous because he was a driver who won a couple of races, but he was notoriously quite hard on the tyres. He never won a European Championship because there wasn't a World Championship back in the 20s, but he did finish second on a number of occasions. But for him, for von Brauchitsch, Toby's kind of reminding me of that today. If I were to make a German racing connection in the 20s and the 30s, I would relate it to Hartle Toby. So his charge has been stopped, and unless Howard Dunn has any issues, I think the German will be celebrating in front of the home crowd for a solid 7th place. I think he'll still be pleased with that. Rakatamanga's done a great job. He's almost caught up to Dennis, to be fair. I mean, what's that gap now? 13.5 seconds. That could be the one to watch here, with maybe 2 laps to go. Thanks, Mikey. That's really appreciated, mate. That's nice of you to say. Looking forward to having you racing next season with ACC. It'd be good to see you on track and get a chance to commentate it on you as well, which is always a good positive. But Rakatamanga, he's the one now we're watching. He's the one that we're going to keep a keen interest on. 11.5 seconds the gap between himself and Penders as it stands. And Penders has just come out of Arenberg not so long ago. I wonder if Warner will see him coming. He'll be getting the blue flag. He'll get out of the way, and yeah, he gets right out of the way. So that's nicely done from Joe. And Joe's going to finish in 13th place, which, to be honest with you, is actually a really, really strong result for Joe. Because even though he was quite far behind before, the thing is he's kept with it, you know. And if we look at the timing tower, he's going to finish in front of Goho Renault and Byford Rue, who would typically finish in front of him. So today, for Joe, it's a really positive result, and I think he should be proud of this. I think, to get around the circuit in the manner that he has done. But there's still a couple of laps to go for him. And Liam Watkinson, I wonder if he's had an issue. I'm just looking at the car. He's not getting going. The car seems to be... He's got the hazards going. Is he going to have to get the car stopped? Is he going to have to reboot it? See if he can do a control. There we go. Now he gets it going. I think he just had to wait to get the motor restarted. I think he's had a spin or something. He's been in the wall again, unfortunately. But for Watkinson, running in 12th place, Jordan Harding in second. He hasn't gained any time on Chapman since Chap has had his, I would say, let's call it a brief moment when he went off the road. But at the same time, he hasn't lost anything. So Harding, best result of the season, on his way to second position. I think he'll be happy with that. Another driver who, to be fair to Jordan, if he was able to do a full season, he could fight for a championship crown. There are a number of drivers who think he can do that. And I'm certain that he could pull it off as well. But it's just a case of whether he can commit to that full 15-round season for the championship for the next part of 2026. We'll have to wait and see. Dan Hatton, oh God, Dan Hatton and that curb, like, literally get a room at this point. The 55. He should know better already, Dan, because that's, yeah, not ideal is how I would describe that line through there. That's awful. But yeah, Dan running along in third position at the moment, but on his way for a second podium in a row, considering we talked all bloody season long about not having a podium and then two come along at once. There is a bus analogy in there somewhere if you want to make that distinction. Fabio Matt back in the pit. He's done a good job today as Fabio. I know he's had a tough race. He's down in 11th, but despite being in and out of the pit, he's carried on. He's going to score some good points in the end. And I think the Italian he'll move past Ross Harris, and he might move past another driver, but we'll have to wait and see for the final championship standings. Jeffrey Van Buren, he comes into the pits as well. What could have been really for Van Buren? I think his incident earlier when he broke the back of the car, kind of, that was it really in terms of his race for the championship. But he will finish second in the Drivers' Championship. He's had a great season. I don't think that can be disputed, to be honest with you. When you think about it, he had a good season last time out in season 10. He got his first race victory, finished 7th in the drivers' standings. This time he's going to finish second. He's looked very strong at times. He hasn't had a race victory since Silverstone, but again, another driver who has just shown that consistent level you need across the 15 races, and he's had a bunch of top 5 finishes. That's basically what's kept him in the Drivers' Championship. So he's got in. He's probably gone to get a new set of boots on, and he'll have time to do, if Mark Chapman has to go and do another lap, which it hasn't come up to say he shouldn't, he will go and see if he can do a fast lap, see what he can do. His best lap's an 8:36 at the minute. Penders is 7 seconds in front of Rakatamanga, so this is going to go down to the final lap between these two. Penders' last lap an 8:33. And just keep that figure in your head for the time being. Rakatamanga on an 8:24. 9 seconds faster than the Belgian. This is going to be a last lap sprint, I think. It's going to be really exciting to see these two going for it on the final lap. And John, you're right. I think that's the important thing for anyone who's watching at the moment and you're interested in getting involved in ACC Race Nation. You might not win straight away, or you might be like Goho Renault or another driver. But the thing is that you're always constantly improving in this championship, and we've seen it with a number of drivers this season making those steps forward. We're seeing those first-time podiums happening more often. We're seeing new race winners as well. And as I mentioned before, it could be you next season getting into the top 10, whoever is watching right now. If it's new to you, you could be getting that first breakthrough result. And the great thing about this championship is that the drivers will help you out if you need any advice. As I was saying before my microphone does what it does, as I was saying, like, the drivers, they will help you out, and it's a good community to be involved in that you can have a good laugh with as well. So that's something to look forward to for season 12, and I'm excited to see what challenges will present the GC3 drivers. But right now, less than 7 minutes to go in this championship. I think Tony Manley's gone off. He has. That's a yellow flag. So Danny Zoutenbayer moves up another place. The outgoing champion is going to be happy with that. A little look through. Liam Watkinson 3 laps down at the moment. Fabio Matt the same. Van Buren 1 lap down at the minute, as is... Well, Danny Zoutenbayer is not a lap down, and nor is actually Van Buren. They're just... Where they are on circuit is a little bit confusing at times. Goho Renault is about 5 laps away. Tony Manley looks like he is a lap down, actually, according to the timing standings. Howard Dunn running in 6th place. It's going to be a good end to the season for Howard, as I said earlier. But Mark Chapman cycling his way through. I say cycling, I don't mean that literally. But cycling his way through the corners. And I don't know if Chapman would have expected a race victory today. You know, he qualified in 3rd place, which is, again, his qualifying is always strong, is Chappers. But I don't know if he expected that when he was 4.5 seconds off pole position. But this just shows you, again, this is the way that this circuit works. It is not one for fast but inconsistent drivers. It's not one for technical issues. You look at Chapman and you look at Jordan Harding, you know, those 2 drivers who are 1 and 2 right now have not been setting the fastest laps of the race. You know, don't get me wrong, they've not been slow by any means, but Hartle Toby's fastest lap is an 8:21. Chappers is a 25. You know, you're looking at a 4-second swing. If we look at Harding's best lap time in the race, it's a 27. It's 6 seconds back. So it's all about progression. Danny Zoutenbayer's in the pits, actually. I wonder if Zoutenbayer had contact with Tony Manley. I wonder if something happened there, because they were close together on circuit. But Harding on his way. Dan Hatton on his way to a podium. Rakatamanga, that charge is stalled a little bit. Let's get on board with the Frenchman. Right on board this time. He's 4 and a bit seconds away. In fact, that's the first time you could see Dennis Penders just up the road. 4 minutes and 10 seconds to go on the timing tower. It's going to be tight as to whether Mark Chapman will finish the race on the lap or not. Well, we will watch him as he comes across the line, but let's stay on board for the rest of, well, for the most of the part of this lap with Rakatamanga as he comes down through the next part of the race circuit here at Callanhard. Through the right-handers, left-hander, then a little right-hander to go alongside that at Worth-Siphon. And he just has to try and spot his braking zone, but you can see he's gaining all the time on Penders, corner by corner. That car, you have to wonder with Rakatamanga what would have happened with him if he hadn't have had any damage. You know, it's another really big question for this race. He was struggling earlier on, but since he got it fixed at the pit stop, he's absolutely flown through it. And his pace has been really strong. He's pushing himself now out of the Exmouler section up towards Bergwerk now. Race time 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There shouldn't be any real issues with ambient temperature, but there will be with track temperature because of the casting of the shadows from the trees. And of course, if we had any wind in real life, you'd be looking at tree leaves falling onto the race circuit. But you look at Penders now, he's only 2 seconds in front of the man I'm on board with. Watkinson's gone into the wall again, which is a great old shame. But considering we've been streaming for 2 hours and 50 minutes, we're not far away from the end of what has been a wonderful season 11. Through the left-hander at Klostertal, and now coming up to the corner that leads into the most famous corner in racing history at the Carousel, and that is now visible tarmac, space between Penders and Rakatamanga. That is a gap that you can measure if you had AWS's infographic service in front of you. And look, he's closing corner by corner, the gap bouncing under a second now. And will he be close enough on the main straight? It's going to be hard to make an overtake through this section, if I'm being honest. But we've seen Rakatamanga make moves before. We won't be afraid to do it. Penders will be wanting to get a joint third in the driver's standings. He'll be aiming for that if he finishes in fourth. So he won't give it up easy. Ooh, a little bit of a shake from the 296. Mid-corner as we go down through the Whipperman section. Into Eschbach. You can see the cars are just... All the time I've watched Rakatamanga, his steering wheel is having so many inputs. He must have a workout. He must have the muscles from Brussels, quite literally, when he's working out, and the car, he soars away at the wheel. So many minor, mini corrections that he does. But it's a driving style that has worked for this circuit. Chappers is on the main straight, less than 60 seconds to go. Rakatamanga just taking it easy as they went into Plantsgarten there. I think Chappers is going to come across the line before the timer, if I'm being honest, unless he decides to slow right down, which I think he's got the space to do so. So I am going to cut. I know I should stay with this fight, but I'm just going to go to Chappers, just in case it tells him to do another lap. Is he going to carry on? Is he going to stop? He's going to carry on. Over the timing board. Final lap of the race. Final lap of the season. So we can go back to Rakatamanga. Look at this. He's right under the rear diffuser of the Ferrari. Does the Ferrari get a good exit through the corner? Oh, well, he would have done, but then the game decided no, you can have a bounce over the rear right tyre of the curb. Here we go in the slipstream for the Porsche. To the right-hand side he goes. Who's going to have the best straight line speed as they draw alongside one another? But the Ferrari, I've got to say, has just got the legs. Rakatamanga's trying to go back into the slipstream. But that Ferrari has been geared quite nicely. And it's worked out beautifully for Penders. He's going to stay in front unless Rakatamanga does something bordering. Oh, he's going to lose it as he's just about gathered it all together. My, oh my. I thought we were going to see the Porsche planting into the barriers, but we didn't. And that's a great exit out of the final corner. What a run that is. Towards the start-finish line. Here we go across the line. It is neck and neck, but now Rakatamanga will have the inside line for turn one. And will he complete this move? There's contact between the two. They both moved for the same piece of tarmac. Rakatamanga's going to go deep. Penders, can he find a way through? Can he undercut? No, he can't. And Rakatamanga moves into fourth position. And that was all set up from a beautiful final corner run. And on the final lap of the race, we get an overtake. The Frenchman moves past Penders, and Stuart Packham will be delighted at that because he'll be finishing third on his own in the drivers' standings rather than tied for it. As it stands, we've got to make sure we question that, of course, because it's not over yet. We've still got a lap to go. And as I said earlier on, you know, this circuit in its current guise in the 24-hour route, it's 15 miles long. Well, 16 miles long if you round it up. So there's plenty of time. If we were at a normal race circuit, this would be another 5 laps to go. So, what has happened there? Rakatamanga and Penders have gone off. I'm almost in disbelief. Penders is trying to get back on the track. He's done just that. Is Rakatamanga going to let him go? He is. I wonder if Rakatamanga went off the road. It looked like he did and then bounced into Penders. So we've got another fight on our hands. Round 3. We had it down the main straight. We had it down the first straight. And now we've got it again. But Rakatamanga, well, he's gone through most of the race with damage, and then he had a blistering realignment, and now he's got damage again. So, who came off worse in that, I wonder? Penders had a side swipe, but Rakatamanga had a front bumper impact, so it'll all come down to top speed, and if the Ferrari's got more grunt, it's going to come down to Rover's ability. As we saw earlier in this race, Rover's car is set up in a way where it doesn't have the best top speed. Oh, he's just struggling a little bit to get back into his rhythm that he had before. Oh, he's going off the road, he's into the wall, and that might be it for Rakitamanga's chance of the 4th place finish. And suddenly, Dennis Penders re-emerges back into 3rd place in the driver's standings, tied with Stuart Packham. 3 seconds is the gap right now. So, well, oh well. For all the people who have been watching so far, thank you so much. Just so you're aware, the full race will be uploaded onto YouTube. I say later on today, but the processing time, of course, for a stream that is going to be 3 hours long, it will probably upload in the middle of the night. So I will make everybody aware of that on the Discord in the morning, providing that my fridge gets delivered tomorrow. That's been a whole ordeal for those that are watching us. Something completely aside. Every time I talk about something in the personal life, it always involves a fridge. That's a story for another day. I'll tell you about that in season 12. That's a cliffhanger we could end on right there. There's Jordan Harding. He's 26 seconds behind Mark Chapman, who has lapped Jeffrey Van Buren. So there's only 8 cars on the lead lap right now. Dan Hatton is 40 seconds clear of that fight we've just seen with Dennis Penders. Unless he does something silly again, he should be A-OK for a 2nd podium of the season, along with Jordan Harding, who will get his 2nd podium of the season. Fabio Matt, as I said earlier, a tough race for him, but he's going to come home in 11th position. Hartle Toby slipped backwards as well since his damage. I think he's had a few issues since we last cut to him. So Hartle Toby now has his damage fixed, but he slides back down to 10th place. So, driver of the day? You'd have to give it to Jordan, wouldn't you? Realistic. He's the only one who's... do you know what? I said it before. I'm not going to say anything until he gets onto the main straight. That's what I'll do. You know, Chapman's been in the wall, spun round. Hatton's been in the wall, spun round. Penders has done nothing wrong, actually, but he had that incident with Rakitamanga just then. But that, again, that wasn't his fault. So he'd be in contention for driver of the day. Rakitamanga's had a great drive through the field, but he's had a few issues and that's impacted him. Howard Dunn hasn't done anything particularly wrong during this race, but the big thing that he did do was the stop and go penalty, speeding in the pit lane. Tony Manley's had a good recovery drive. He's going to end up in 7th. He's a minute clear. Well, that doesn't look like a minute clear at all, does it? That looks like mere seconds between Manley and Zoutenbayer. We might have a fight on our hands on the final lap between those two. The Italian looking for his best finish of the season, and Danny Zoutenbayer looking to finish in the top 7. Van Buren kind of got limited by his qualifying position. Same with Toby with his disconnection. Fabio Matt's had a tricky one. Liam Watkinson, he's had a battle this race, but he's got through it, as has Joe Warner. What could have been for Goho Renault. And then Byford Rue, again, had a great first half an hour and then just sadly went wrong for him after that impact with Van Buren earlier. Rakitamanga is miles away from Penders now, so he's had more issues since then. Manley has got the pressure of Danny Zoutenbayer right with him as they go through the left-hander. Zoutenbayer's really committed. He's looking to the outside line at the hairpin. He's not going to go around the outside, is he? What a move! If he pulls that off, he's going to be on the inside for the next sequence of corners. They can't give this up, and he backs out of it in the end. Oh, wow! That would have been the overtake to end this season, wouldn't it? Wow! That was so unlucky, but let's watch this. Let's watch the crowning glory of Mark Chapman. He's had a brilliantly consistent season. Multiple podiums, as I said earlier on, 6 of those. He's going to get his first race win today. He has been, through this season, pretty much faultless. So he might have had a blip back at round 3, but that was such a long time ago that no one will even remember what happened. He's got a couple of corners to go, and he's going to become a 2-time champion in ACC Race Nation. He could get the champagne flowing because Your season 11 champion is coming towards the start-finish line. Race winner and season 11 champion, it's Mark Chapman, who takes it here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Your champion after an arduous 15-round campaign. What a drive from him. Jordan Harding, he'll be delighted with that. I'm going to give him my driver of the day. What a race from him. Just brilliant all along the way. No mistakes. He takes his second podium and his best result of the season, as does Dan Hatton. Joint best result of the season. 2 podiums in 2 races for him. He will finish in 3rd place. Great drive from him. Danny Zoutenbayer is still glued to the back of Tony Manley. We'll watch this fight from this side of things. Zoutenbayer trying to look at a move there in the right-hander at Bergwerk, but I don't think he's going to find a way through there, but he's really trying. Looking to the outside now. He's going to go through Castleton and Klosterstall. Can he find a way past with a bit of slipstream? He has got a car that is undamaged compared to Manley, who's still got that issue from when he went through the gravel earlier. Dennis Pender's coming towards the start-finish line as Zoutenbayer moves left and right, trying to find a way through for 7th place, but Manley just following the natural curvature of the road as he goes to the inside. Is he? No, he's not quite close enough. Well done to Dennis Penders. A great result for him. 4th in the end, tied for 3rd in the driver's standings. Well done to the Belgian. Rakatamanga is not far away either, but I think he's just taking it steady. Zoutenbayer's going to go through. That's wide from Manley. No, he backs out of it. So I wonder if Zoutenbayer hit him then as they go through the carousel. Rakatamanga just bringing the car home. He's got Hartle Toby behind him, who isn't going to do anything stupid. But those 2 finishing in 5th and 10th respectively. The Frenchman coming across the line. A great drive from him. It could have been 4th had it not been for the incident earlier, but hey, you still can't discredit a great drive through the field. Zoutenbayer, though, is putting all of the pressure he can on Tony Manley for the 7th place. There must have been contact to push Manley off the road. That's the only thing I can think of, which is why Zoutenbayer didn't go through. Howard Dunn just coming through the final corners. We'll cut to him now. Well done to the South African. First opportunity he's had to get a podium tonight. Still a great drive, though. He'll build on from that. He won't make that mistake again. But Zoutenbayer's trying now, going through Brunchen. In the last few miles of this race circuit, we've lost someone, actually, at the end of this race. I'm not sure who that is. Someone who was in the lower reaches of the field, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But Manley is still hanging on as we go into Flugplatz. See if we can get aboard, actually. Let's get on board with Danny Zoutenbayer. All the dirt and the stones flipped up onto the front windscreen. You can see Manley's just doing his best to try and thwart any overtake. Danny Zoutenbayer trying to find a spot. Ooh, it's a little bit of a wobble through the Senna S's from the Ferrari. He needs to get this final corner right before Dottinger Ho straight. That's what he's got to do. He needs to just set the car up through these next few corners. Oh, you don't want to go any further than that, Danny. The outgoing champion wants to make the last move of season number 11 at ACC Race Nation. He's doing everything he can into the final corner. Oh, I think he might have gone too deep. It all comes down to how Manley does through this right-hander. Bit wide, actually. This will give him a chance. It's going to give him a slingshot. That's the type of run you want if you want to go through. Manley goes defensive to the inside. We cut to the external cameras. They're going to be side by side down the main straight. Zoutenbayer's got a nose in front. And is it going to become a car length? Not quite. I'd say it's front bumper to door panel at the minute. The AMR starting to drag alongside. This is going to be it towards the start fence. Neither of them are going to back out of this. This is going to be it. They're going to go side by side through the left-hander. Manley moves across and he's just about got in front. The Italian's in front of the Dutchman and he stays in front. Manley is going to effectively take the final overtake of the season there, and he will take, it's not going to be 6th place. One of the other drivers has retired in front of us. But it will be a classification in front of the outgoing Season 10 champion. Manley takes a position in front of Danny Zoutenbayer in the end. Great fight to end the season on. Van Buren has come across the line. So we wait for our remaining 3 drivers. So Liam Watkinson's come across the line. Fabio Matt's come across the line as well whilst we were watching that. More drivers are leaving. So I'll go through the final timings in just a moment. But Joe Warner, thanks to all the DNFs and leaving the lobby, we can't actually see where he's going to finish. He was in 13th last I checked, but he survived the 2 hours, and I think this is a really, really good drive from Joe. He's going to end up having done 11 laps over the course of 2 hours, which I think from his perspective, I think he'll be a little bit frustrated, but also he'll take some solace from the fact that he's been able to circulate without any too major dramas for him. He had a couple of whacks with the wall and had to get into the pits, but in truth, it's all about building confidence on the new wheel for him. So Joe Warner, coming around the last 2 corners, he's going to finish off his season 11, which will be his best result of the season if he is in 13th place, which I believe he is. The number 75 will cross the line in just a second, and there he is. Now, will Goho Renault catch Byford? Yes, he will. Byford Rue ending the season with a lawnmowering service there at the Flugplatz. I don't know if they need any, to be honest with you. It does. He's had a big shunt, actually. The way that suspension is riding is looking a little bit like an American lowrider from the 1970s. I'm thinking of like a Cadillac Brougham sedan, something like that. It's just got air gas suspension the way it's riding along. But we'll cut away from Byford Rue. We'll come back to him at the end. But right now, Seb, he's had 1 race win this season. He has admittedly today fallen foul of something that has gone on. We don't know what's quite happened to him. So his official race results will look a little bit skewed. He'll have a victory, a 14th place, and a DNF. But none of them tell the real story of this guy. And I think if he competes full-time next season, he's going to be one to watch. He looks very quick, I have to say. And I think he'll be one for drivers who'll be bookmarking if he shows up for the first race of the season. He's even flashing the lights already for us, showing off down the main straight, round this final fast corner at the Nordschleife. Just 3 more corners to navigate down through the gears. He can go down the box quite carefully, to be fair. He doesn't have to worry about anyone behind him. But well done to Seb. He's going to get across the line. We'll have to find out from him what happened with those issues. But Goho Renault is going to come and get classified, and we just wait for Byford Rue now, who continues on with his "you grow 'em, we cut 'em" service at the moment. I don't really want to. Zoutenbayer was saying the reason why he was struggling was that he had no fuel with a few people. Hartle Toby getting a bit peeved off. Joe Warner saying he's in pain. Just waiting for Byford Rue he's having a huge struggle. He's dragging that car home. I'm sure that everybody back in the Bavarian base of BMW will be delighted to see the car returning to pits. Just not in the way that they would have expected. I don't really, to be honest with you, I'm almost a little bit lost for words, really, because I'll be honest with you, I kind of took the mick out of Byford at the start of the season, saying he typically takes a lawnmower approach to racing, but this is taking it quite literally. I think if we try to cut on board, let's try and cut on board with him just for this last bit. I just want to see how far his steering wheel has gone to the left. He's trying. Look at that. He's full lock left. He can't get the car. He doesn't want to give. I've got to give him credit for trying, because his car is fully locked left on the wheel, but his steering does not want to go that way at all. Oh, and now he's spun. He's going to have to reverse. Get the car, about there. Oh. I don't know how he's going to... He has got facing the right way. Is he going to bounce off the wall? Yeah. We may be here for some time. It's almost as a case of he's almost so close to the end. He's given up. Right, Mark Chapman is your race winner and season 11 champion. Congratulations to Mark. Jordan Harding, second in the end with Dan Hatton rounding out the podium. 2 podiums this season for the 2 McLaren drivers. Dennis Penders will line up 4th in the end, 3rd in the drivers' standings. Rover Rakatamanga is 5th with Howard Dunn in 6th place. Tony Manley having a good battle with Danny Zoutenbayer in the end for 7th place. The Dutchman, an outgoing champion, in 8th. Van Buren, what could have been for him, in 9th. And the same with Hartle Toby, were it not for his disconnection, in 10th place. Fabio Matt and Liam Watkinson finished 11th and 12th for the season, with Joe Warner and Sebastian Gorho-Renault finishing in 13th and 14th. Byford Rue made a valiant effort, but the Marshals pushed him over the line in the end, in 15th, with Rich Jarram finishing technically within race distance regulations, 9 laps back, in 16th, with John Wells 17th. We also had retirements, well, technically we had retirements from Rich Jarram, John Wells, Ross Harris and Michael van der Waal, who went out on the first lap. And it's a cautionary tale to everybody who watches this. Don't retire on the final lap of the first lap of the race, because it could all change. And if we're being honest, if Michael van der Waal had been in the pit, he could have finished in the top 6. That's how it works. Byford Rue saying it didn't let me finish my lawnmower business. No, we saw all of that, Jacob. And as I was saying before, at the start of the season, I took the mick out of you for being a lawnmower service typically, but you really did encompass it as the proper green thumb himself. Maybe you should have a green livery next season. That's something to think about. Put some flowers on there. Actually, no, don't put flowers on there, because if you're a lawnmower, you'll be cutting them all up. But at the end of everything, on a serious note, it has been 15 rounds of pure class action. We have seen multiple race winners, multiple podium finishes, and a lot of great stories throughout, you know. And I think it can be right in saying that the guys at ACC, the admin team, have done an outstanding job and deserve full rounds of applause for the work that they've done organising this season, especially doing it across a Christmas break as well, which can be really difficult to navigate. But they've kept the numbers up, and that just shows you the commitment the drivers have to this championship. Next season, we don't have to worry about a Christmas break, because it'll be happening hopefully over the course of 2026, and there'll be 15 weeks of racing action. And if you do the mathematics and the race week breaks that we'll have, of which there should be 2 at minimum, that'll take us across a span of 4.5 months. So that is going to be a lot of action. If you're also wondering, of course, I will be doing some commentary for season 12 next season. Of course, it all depends on dates and how much I can do, but I will do my absolute utmost to get to the events as often as I can. But we will see how that all develops and plays out. But thank you to everyone who's been watching. It's been a wonderful season. Congratulations again to Mark Chapman for taking his 2nd Drivers' Championship in ACC Race Nation. I've been Jack Millington, and wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and we'll see you in ACC Race Nation for Season 12, coming soon.